Good afternoon, members, and welcome to this meeting of full council. During the meeting today, I will be making rulings on process and conduct, and during the meeting, I would ask council to abide by the standing orders and the rules of debate. We all enjoy robust, respectful debate, and today will be no different. I expect the highest standards of behaviour and will not hesitate to intervene immediately. I will, however, warn members should I feel that their behaviour is inappropriate, and if successful warnings are required, I will ask you to leave the chamber. If member speeches are run over the time allocated, I will allow you to finish your sentence, but ask you to please finish as quickly as possible. At certain times, I may ask and seek guidance from my advisors should I need to, and to adjourn, I will inform council of what is happening at that time and a time for us all to reconvene. We will take a break later on this afternoon and tea will be available in the reception room. I would also like to take this opportunity to remind members that there is no local government equivalent of parliamentary privilege. Members will therefore be liable for any defamatory statements they make. If you wish to speak during the meeting, I would ask that you would raise your hand and wait for me to invite you to speak. Please raise any orders of order verbally. I will then pause the meeting to deal with the point of order. When raising a point of order, please state which procedure, rule of law you believe has been breached. All votes will be conducted via the electronic voting system today, with available time to cast your vote or amend, limited to 20 seconds. Thank you. One additional note today, if members are unable to stand, there is no requirement to do so today. Okay. Right, we move on to apologies. Are there any apologies for absence?
Thank you, Lord Mayor. We've received apologies from Councillor Lowry, Councillor Stoneman and Councillor Cree.
Okay. Councillor Patel.
Councillor Finn will be late.
Thank you. Moving on to item 2 on the agenda, minutes of the ordinary and extraordinary meetings in November, assigned as correct. Deputy Lord Mayor, will you second my proposal?
I second it, Lord Mayor.
Thank you. Does anybody wish to raise any comments on the minutes? Nope. Okay, thank you. We'll move to the vote now. Please use the voting buttons on your unit. Green in favour, red against and amber to abstain. Right, that's unanimous in favour. Moving on to item number 3, declarations of interest. Can members please make it known by raising their hands, please, if they have any private or disclosable pecuniary interest in any of the matters today on the agenda. My advisor will take a record of interest declared.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I'll start from my left. Councillor Coker.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I have a pecuniary interest on item number 10 as a licence holder.
Thank you, Councillor. No, Councillor Hendy.
I'd like to declare an interest on item 16B, a pecuniary interest, because I have a family member that works for a private foster agency and I feel I'll be better off leaving the chamber during the debate.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Harrison.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Declare an interest, pecuniary interest in item 9 of a family member who has a restricted licence, so I'll be leaving the council chamber. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Patel.
Declare an interest in item 10 as a licence holder.
Sorry, pecuniary, so we'll be leaving the room. Thank you.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Can I declare pecuniary interest in item 8 and item 16C, please? And I will be leaving the room for both items.
Members, any further declarations? Councillor Lugger.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Likewise, on item number 10 of the agenda, representing the licensed victuallers, I declare pecuniary interest. Thank you.
Thank you very much, councillors. All right, we move on to item number 4, proportionality, January 2024. Please could I ask council to note changes to proportionality as detailed in the supplement pack and the order paper. Does any member wish to speak? No. Okay, thank you, noted. He's not here. Right, item number 5 are questions from the public. The 2 members of public that have got questions have not been able to attend today, so that we will respond to those by post. Thank you. Right, now move on to item number 6, Lord Mayor's announcements. It is with great sadness that I formally report the passing of Freeman David Stark. David Stark was well-liked and respected politician with a strong commitment to building cross-party consensus on contentious issues over 5 decades. He had a long and varied career in politics, starting in 1947 when he joined the Young Conservatives. A crowning achievement was the development of the Capital Fund to purchase Mount Edgecombe in 1971, an 865-acre county park on the Rhine Peninsula, and is now home to a Grade 1 listed gardens and 55 Grade 2 listed structures that are visited by Plymouth residents and tourists from further afield. David always ensured that local people's concerns and issues were heard and acted upon. He made active contributions to his local area with the development of a local park and arranging family fun days for the local people. David worked incredibly well with officers, recognising and respected the role that they play with politicians in meeting the needs of local people. Members, would you please join me in a minute's silence for Freeman Stark? Thank you, members. Please be seated. Holocaust Memorial Day. This past Saturday, on the anniversary of the liberation of Auschwitz-Birkenau, we remembered the millions of people who lost their lives during the Holocaust and other genocides. As we reflect on the past, we must also look to the future. We must continue to work together to create a world free from prejudice, hatred and persecution. We must stand together to ensure that the atrocities of the past are never repeated. And we must remember the victims and honour the survivors. Tomorrow at noon, we will come together in the Peace Garden on the Hoe to mark and commemorate the Holocaust Memorial Day. I hope that many of you will join me. Let us take a moment to remember the 6 million Jewish men, women, and children who were murdered during the Holocaust, along with millions of other people killed under the Nazi persecution, and those that have been killed in other genocides such as Rwanda, Srebrenica, and Cambodia. Please stand. Thank you very much, members. Please sit, and I'll now proceed to the well to make some awards. Long Service Awards. I'll speak up. As a council, we recognise the long service of all of our staff and councillors. Today, the council will recognise the contribution of 2 councillors with a combined service to Plymouth City Council of, I've got to do some sums now, haven't I? It's about 56 years, isn't it? Yeah, about 56 years. So this was written for 3 councillors as opposed to 2 councillors. One of them we will see later. The first one is Councillor Tudor Evans, OBE. Councillor Tudor Evans, OBE, is the leader of Plymouth City Council, and in his 36th year of continuous service to the Ham Ward as Labour and Cooperative Councillor, it will make it 36 years in May. He has been leader of Plymouth City Council Labour Group since May 1998. Tudor was awarded the Order of the British Empire for political service and services to local government in the New Year's Honours List in 2018. He is a member of the GMB Trade Union and a cooperative party. Thank you, Tudor, from the council and the people of Plymouth. Do you want to join me for a photograph? I know that you are... All right, okay, that's good, that's good. Can't run, of course. We now move on to Councillor Patrick Nicholson. Councillor Patrick Nicholson was first elected in 1992 as the youngest member at 24 years of age and has served on Plymouth City Council for 29 years, holding most roles including Conservative Group Leader, Council Leader 2000 to 2002 and the youngest Lord Mayor from 2005 to 2006. In addition to his public service, Patrick is a contracts manager for Babcock International Group in Devonport and has served me well. Thank you very much, Patrick. He used to supply me with goods there. Excellent. In Devonport Royal Dockyard, Plymouth, where he had commercial responsibilities for the Royal Navy warships, refitting programme and submarines. Thank you, Patrick, and from the Council and the people of Plymouth. And will you join me for a photograph, please? Right, moving on now to Leader and Cabinet announcements. Leader, do you have any announcements?
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Yes, I do. I wanted to raise the huge success we're currently having in securing strategic funding for economic development. The announcements around general funding for the authority notwithstanding, I think it's fair to say that we're having a bit of a purple patch on competitive challenge funding. Although I'm not allowed, obviously, to prematurely celebrate, on Thursday, we hope to hear some good news about the lottery bid for the National Marine Park. We don't know yet, and we've been waiting weeks and weeks and weeks, and of course that's really important because there's £26 million worth of funding at stake. But Thursday notwithstanding, let me give you an idea of what we have secured. £19.9 million from the Levelling Up Round 2 bid, which transmogrified into Levelling Up Round 3, as if by magic. 25 million on Freeport Seed Capital Grant. We secured £7.5 million for business support from Innovate UK for the UK's first maritime and marine launch pad. And we're managing £5 million shared prosperity funding, which is, of course, as you know, the replacement for EU monies. Well, not quite pound for pound, but nevertheless, it's money that we wouldn't otherwise have. We've also secured a share of the 10.9 million from DCMS for the Creative Growth Programme, which provides business support to creative industries. And I won't mention, well, I will mention, we've now created an investment pipeline of £1 billion. That isn't money that can be used to run council services. But what it does do is indicate that Plymouth, under this administration, is very much open for business. If we do get that lottery bid this week, it will take our running total of securing over £100 million on economic development projects for the local economy. That's a rate of about £4 million a week, which we have to spend between now and March 2026. And if that doesn't float your boat, I really don't know what will. And of course, this sort of success doesn't happen by accident. It happens because this council is ambitious for Plymouth. It happens because we not only have met our delivery targets, but we've exceeded them. And government and funding agencies know that when they give money to Plymouth, it gets spent, it doesn't get wasted, it gets used effectively to create jobs. And we're always looking ahead, 5 years ahead, to make sure that this investment pipeline is still flowing. I just wanted to bring you up to speed with Freeport announcements. I just got a couple from last week. I know the conspiracists out there, if I can just give them assurance, there are no plans to privatise Dartmoor or turn Plymouth into a private enterprise city council. I don't know where these people get the idea from, but working in partnership with Devon and with the neighbouring district council in South Hams, we're securing the Sherford employment land, Lord Mayor. The Freeport is funding South Hams to purchase this land from the Housing Consortium, and we'll be looking to work closely with South Hams to bring forward various employment schemes on that site. This is so significant because in the southwest, employment land is scarce, and this is protecting one of the most important sites in the southwest, being so close to the A38. And of course, Freeport Langage Green Hydrogen, £20 million plus funding for a green hydrogen hub has been secured by Carlton Power as part of the UK's Round 1 hydrogen allocation round, and it's hoped that the plant will now be operational by 2026. This is huge for the green energy projects within this city. It's huge for the Freeport too. Funding has also been approved for 2 new direct developments on council land in the Freeport. The first is completion of our phase 2 development at Ocean's Gate, with more industrial units and new innovation barns. I'll tell you about innovation barns another time. And the second is our fifth phase of direct development at Langage. Finally, Mill Bay improvements. Last week, the £26 million improvement programme at Mill Bay Docks, part funded by the Freeport, finally started. As part of these important works, the quayside will be strengthened, and that's going to enable an increase in freight services, as well as significant improvements to passenger and cruise facilities. It's absolutely fantastic. I just wanted to bring you up to date, moving on from the Freeport with the Shared Prosperity Fund in particular. You might have seen from press announcements around Community in Place. We ran an open call for Community in Place projects as part of it. Of £700,000 of funding available to be delivered between now and 2025, March 2025. 2 successful projects for that money. One was led by Nudge Community Builders, and another led by 4 Greens Community Trust. The project led by Nudge is going to focus on developing recently disused buildings in Union Street, supporting small community organisations, and working with Plymouth Energy Community on net zero initiatives. The project led by 4 Greens is working in some of the city's most deprived and disadvantaged areas, providing support through hosting food support schemes, through new food co-ops and social supermarkets. So that's a really interesting innovation. We're in the process of finalising funding agreements with both of these projects, and we're going to have these signed very shortly for them to begin mobilisation and delivery. Finally, on people and skills, we've opened applications for organisations to deliver people and skills project as part of the UK Shared Prosperity Fund in a total budget of £850,000, again to be delivered before March 2025. We have 3 priority focuses for this funding, Lord Mayor. Supporting green skills, pathways to employment, and improving digital inclusion and supporting local skills needs. We're closing this open call on the 19th of February, looking forward to having projects delivered at the beginning of the next financial year, and I hope to update Council at the next time we meet on who got that money. So just to put you in a picture, we made sure that we consult with the Plymouth Growth Board, and we've worked with them to identify priorities, so it's a real partnership. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you very much, Leader. Councillor Hayden.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I'd just like to congratulate 2 members from the Trading Standards, John Kelly and Mel Walker, for winning the Outstanding Project for Illegal Tobacco Work at the Trading Standards South West Awards. The nominations come from 11 local authorities that cover the South West, and I'm sure Lord Mayor and the rest of members would also send their congratulations. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. Councillor Lang.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and thank you for letting me sit down. I want to say a huge thank you to elected members, Plymouth City Council employees, businesses and members of the public who supported our campaign in December to make Christmas 2023 extra special for our care-experienced young people. We received in excess of 100 Christmas presents donated, as well as gift vouchers and a large amount of cash donations, which enabled PAs, personal advisors, to buy additional gifts. This generosity meant we were able to provide all care-experienced young people open to the Care Leavers team a carefully chosen present that they really appreciated. 30 young people and their guests attended a special Christmas dinner at the Hotel Continental, and for some, this was the first time they had been to a hotel for such an event. There were a further 8 young people who'd wanted to attend but were unable to, so they had their dinner packaged up and individually delivered to them at home to enjoy in the afternoon. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you very much. That really is good news. We now move on to Councillor Aspinall, please.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Well, I started off this morning thinking I was just going to be able to tell Council that following the government's consultation on vaping, we had put a proposal in. But of course, typical of Prime Minister, you know, he's messed up my schedule. We are awaiting, obviously, the full findings of the consultation that has taken place, but the PM gave an indication today of his plans. His proposals echo our concerns: disposable vapes and their uptake for children. We know that vapes, although they have a good we know that vapes are very useful in the smoking cessation service, but if you don't smoke, don't vape, and that goes wholeheartedly for children. We know that the new consultation has shown that we want more trading standards powers, and in fact, they have hinted that that will happen. But we do look forward to hearing the full details, and I will urge all of us to make sure that our MPs support this, because again, we're not hearing what type of vote they're going to have in Parliament, but if there is any vote, we need all 3 of them working for this city, for our children, and for what we're going to do for the environment, because certainly we know that disposable vapes are dangerous for lying around. We know there have been bin fires, etc. So I think we can safely say government has listened, but it'll be interesting because they plan to have further consultation later in the year. We can't take our eye off the ball. So thank you, councillors, for all your support for this. We will keep going, and we will make sure that Plymouth's voice is heard. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do any other Cabinet members have any announcements? Do any other chairs of committees have any announcements? No. Okay, we move on to items. Oh, Councillor Evans.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I wondered if it would be possible for me to move an adjustment to the order paper for today's meeting, please.
Of course.
Could I request, please, that item 16C be taken at the start of the motions on notice, please? Sorry, forgive me. If we could take it as next business, please, if that's possible. If that's possible. Could it be taken as next business now?
Yep.
Through you, Chair. So proposal on the floor to move item 16C to be the next item of business before returning to the published agenda. Thank you, Councillor. Do you have a seconder? Councillor Rennie. So we'll need to vote on that, Chair.
Councillors, we'll move to the vote.
Through you, Lord Mayor, the vote has been carried and therefore we'll take item 16C next before returning to the published agenda.
Okay. Motion list 16C, Plymouth City Airport. Councillor Luggo, would you like to move the motion, please?
Rather intrigued, Lord Mayor, why that has happened. Nevertheless, I shall proceed. Thank you. Pursuant to a motion passed on the 18th of September 2023, the Council resolved to take all necessary steps to return aviation to the Plymouth City Airport site and make substantive progress in this respect before the review of the joint local plan. My Lord Mayor, I quote section PLY 42 of the Plymouth and South West Devon joint local plan, which states, the Plymouth Airport site is safeguarded for aviation uses until the next review of this plan. And members ought to be aware that the next review ends on the 26th of March of this year. Whilst I acknowledge and accept that the administration has had a busy year, a municipal year with projects, since September of last year, I have stressed the urgency of reacquiring the site given the aforesaid deadline. Following the previous motion, and direction from Cabinet, I fully appreciate that Council needed to take advice from a barrister on the whole subject generally. And I further accept that there has been a degree of delay getting that advice since October of last year. Before the end of autumn last, it was accepted that the way forward was to serve a notice of forfeiture on the tenants. A notice of forfeiture, members, means a legal notice stating a breach of a covenant or condition in the lease, and it's a means by which the lease can be removed. I was assured that the forfeiture notice would be served before the Christmas break. On Monday the 18th of December, I asked where we were on target with the forfeiture notice and even offered to come in and serve the notice myself. On the 19th of December 2023, I was informed that King's Counsel advised serving the notice in early January and was given an assurance that Council would follow legal advice. Returning from the Christmas break, I didn't pester anybody, but on the 15th of January, it was apparent that that notice had not been served. I would threatened to bring this motion, and I have no qualms about it. An ultimatum was given to serve it by the 26th of January, the Friday before full council. Otherwise, I'm afraid this motion had to take place. There is no talk that there is legal letters going to the tenants in an attempt to bring this issue to a conclusion. If we act, therefore, within the next few weeks, we can solve this problem, members. All it takes is the motion to go through. We can demonstrate to the planning inspector that the site, there is a commitment and a drive by this council to get it back for aviation purposes. That is my motion, Lord Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Councillor Wakeham, I understand you will second the motion.
Yes, thank you, my Lord Mayor. Now, I've got to say that this is the 11th hour for our city airport, and March, of course, is the deadline. So we have to try and save this valuable piece of real estate. We must remember it belongs to the people of Plymouth. It doesn't belong to the council. It doesn't belong to the councillors here. It belongs to the people of Plymouth. And I want to make that perfectly clear. It is a sacrosanct piece of land which will enable air links as our roads become increasingly busier. I mean, no matter where you go now, you get clogged up in a motorway accident or roadworks or whatever. So we need to make sure we retain this airport. And we certainly can't rely on our railway system. Now, if this motion is merely a way of helping direction of travel with respect to clearing off this lease, I've got to say that we're on the cusp of getting the notice of forfeiture served, and all we need is for our leader, Councillor Tudor Evans, to give his direction to ensuring service within the next 2 weeks. Now, our motion is not contentious. It's not meant to be contentious at all. It's merely a way of combining cross-party strength, as I see it, and that's what we need to do. So we need to reinforce this decision, which was made by Cabinet, and we expect the whole of the council to work together in getting our airport back. So I wholeheartedly support this second motion. Thank you, and second this motion. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Wakeham. Councillor Patel.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. It is extremely important that the people of Plymouth, on whose behalf we as elected members act, that this valuable piece of real estate is retained for them. The people of Plymouth need to know that we are acting in their best interest and that any benefits from this land goes to them. I've been on the council now for almost 3 years, and for 3 years the airport has been coming up. Whilst I was in cabinet, it came up, and even now in opposition, it came up. It doesn't matter to me who shut the airport or what have you. What is important here is when the decision to take the forfeiture notice was made or wasn't made. When it was decided to keep kicking this into the long grass. It is my belief that this notice should have been served soon after Sutton Harbour told us of their intention to close the airport. And I think it is in the interest of the people of Plymouth that we serve that notice forthwith. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Patel. Councillor Evans.
Well, it does matter who closed the airport, because we wouldn't be having this debate today if the Conservative Party in this council hadn't closed the airport without reference to the council meeting. Let's be clear about this. It didn't come to the council meeting. Right? You Conservatives closed it without reference to the rest of us. Okay? It didn't come to the council meeting. So let's get that on the record. I'm sure it doesn't matter to you, but you need to apologise for that decision, and you never have. You never have. And another thing you need to apologise is bringing this motion today. The reason I'm really ticked off about it, not as ticked off as council officers who briefed you confidentially before Christmas, about what this council and the steps we were taking were. This thing about having to serve a notice within 2 weeks, no, that's triggered by the fact that we've given them 2 weeks notice to reply to us. They have now replied to us. Normally with these things, we would do it in private. But unfortunately, because there's an election on, and for some strange reason, again, the Conservatives believe this to be to their advantage if we have a debate about the airport, they have raised it. I'll say this to you again. This isn't in the interest of the city to have this motion here today, because negotiations and discussions with Sutton Harbor are already underway, which you knew in September. You knew last week, because we told you, and we asked you to withdraw this motion because we were in a negotiation with a private company. But what you decided to do was to persist and to try and raise this matter publicly for your own advantage. So I say to you, city before party. That is what we're about in this council. City before party. And if you genuinely cared about keeping the airport open, why on earth did you allow it to close over a dozen years ago? Why didn't you raise those objections then? But you didn't. You were in power. It wasn't you, but some of you were here. Some of you were here. So you cannot, like your friends in Parliament, run away from your responsibilities in this respect. The idea that somehow air services between Plymouth and London would be more regular than a railway is absurd, nor are they a replacement. They would be an adjunct to it, and they would support our connectivity. One of the reasons I want to see that airport back, and why I would never have allowed it to close, had we on this side been allowed the opportunity to have our say, but we weren't, because I repeat again, the Conservatives closed the airport to save £300,000 a year. Can you imagine how many millions we'd have lost since then, had that airport been in existence? To save £300,000. Value, price of everything, value of nothing with the Conservatives. So what I will be doing today is I will be making a formal complaint to the monitoring officer about the behaviour of Councillor Lugger in this respect. I believe he's breached the code of conduct, and I will be making a formal complaint to the monitoring officer about it. He was briefed in private by officers about the actions that this council took. And because of his actions in leaking that confidential information, that negotiations, which should have remained public with that private with that third party, have now been made public. That is irresponsible and crass. It should be city before party, not party before city. And you should apologise for trying to make political capital, for kicking the airport around like a political football when it suits you, jeopardising the negotiations and discussions we are having with Sutton Harbour Holdings. I have to say to you, in 36 years on this council, I have never seen behaviour quite like this. And that is why, I'll tell you this, if we are going to function as a council with having discussions in private with council members of the opposition, then the least that officers of this council can expect is to respect confidentiality, which you have failed to do. City before party, not party before city. Lord Mayor, I oppose this motion.
Councillor Rennie.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I propose we move to the vote, please.
Do you have a seconder? We have several.
In that case, then we need to take a vote on whether to move to the vote.
Yeah. Right, members, we now need to have a vote on whether we take it to the vote. Councillors.
Lord Mayor, on a point of order, we've just had a contribution from the Leader of the Council saying that he didn't have an opportunity in the past because it never came to Council. How can it be right that he now wants to use the Constitution to stymie debate rather than to allow debate when we've only just started the debate?
Thank you very much, Councillor Nicholson. I'm afraid that's not a point of order. Councillor Bridgman, have you a point of order?
Thank you, my Lord Mayor. I do have a point of order. I wanted to speak on this. I brought this to Councillor Evans and actually wanted to support him in my speech. I've written it and I'm gutted I haven't got a chance to actually say anything. But thank you, Councillor Evans.
Thank you very much, Councillor Bridgman. Right, we'll move to the vote. Ladies and members, we will now move to the vote.
Yes, after this
Yeah, afterwards. Right, members, we are voting here on whether to move.
A point of order, please, Lord Mayor.
Councillor Darcy.
Maybe I missed it, but was Councillor Ruddy's motion to move seconded? Did I miss that? Thank you.
Yes, it was Councillor Darcy. Right, members, in consideration that we were interrupted, we're going to go forward again to move to take a vote on whether to take the vote. Okay. Right, members, that motion has been carried. Okay.
Through you, Lord Mayor, as the vote to move to the vote has been carried, it is now down to Councillor Lugger to sum up before we move to the vote on the motion. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
I thank you, my Lord Mayor. Waving the finger again. You granted that lease to Sutton Harbour, didn't you? And if you wanted the airport back, you could have done it, as I told you last September, in 2012 and 2018. The lease allows for it to be done. Paragraph 10, Schedule 7, Councillor Evans. So where's the great big bureaucracy here? Not to put too fine a point on this, Lord Mayor, and I make no apologies. You can report me to whatever standard committee he so wishes. I have been misled. I was assured that a forfeiture notice would be served before the Christmas break. It is in the public interest to know this. It was not. And when I asked on Monday the 18th of December, I was told, oh, it will be done. Oh, yeah, we will serve the 146 notice. I said, I will come in and do it myself. I would send a trainee solicitor in to do it myself. In fact, judging by this standard, why not have two managing clerks from a law firm to run the council? At 5:28 on the 19th of December, I was informed that King's Council advised serving the notice early January. We were told that, assured that the council was going to act upon that advice. Hold that thought. Early January. What does that mean? First week back after Christmas. No such notice served. As custodian of the people of Plymouth, I have the right to tell the people of Plymouth what is happening here. The can is being kicked down the road yet again. Yet again. Constant smoke and mirrors, constant procrastination. My article went in the Herald on the 18th of January, and then on the 19th, this motion was served on council officers. This council has read the motion. It's not been withdrawn from legal services, so why can't I speak? Absolutely disgraceful. 146 notice is the way you bring this to a conclusion. All we asked the leader to do was to endorse the advice that was given. Give a direction that the leader instructs legal services to immediately serve the notice of forfeiture, which has not been served and has been promised 1,000 times. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Lugger. Right, we're now going to move to the vote on the motion. Those for green, those against red, those who abstain, amber. The motion is carried. Right, members, we now move back to the original agenda. This is item 7, Council Tax Base Setting 24-25 and Council Tax Support Scheme 24-25. Councillor Penberthy, would you like to introduce the report?
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I'll do my best to fill in for Councillor Lowry's normal performance, where he would tell you that every year we receive this as a technical report, which forms part of the resource calculations for the 2024-25 revenue budget. It's a statutory requirement for Council to approve the council tax base for the forthcoming financial year and annually review their council tax support scheme. The option to amend the council tax support scheme requires public consultation. For 2024-25, there are no major government amendments, and it is therefore considered correct to continue with the existing scheme, but ensuring compliance with the revised Department for Work and Pensions requirement, which I will now explain. For the purpose of housing benefit, the Department for Work and Pensions has instructed local authorities to treat any hardship payments, for example, alternative fuel payments and the Household Support Fund payments, as local welfare provision, and to disregard them as income or capital for the purposes of housing benefit calculations. They have amended the housing benefit regulations to enable this. So when I come to the council tax support scheme, it's because the government have changed something that we're making an amendment. So what we do and why. Ahead of each new financial year, we have to calculate the number of Band D properties, as this forms the basis of the council tax setting process. The council tax base assumptions include growth and demand on our council tax scheme during the next financial year. The level of council tax subsequently set must be determined using the council tax base figure and takes into account the authority's estimated council tax collection rate. We have retained this at 97.5%, which is prudent given the recent collection levels. The council tax base calculation is attached in Appendix B in everyone's packs. We must remember that as well as us collecting our own council tax, we also collect and get added to the bills the precepts for both Devon and Cornwall Police and Crime Commissioner and for Devon and Somerset Fire and Rescue Authority. As stated, all councils are required annually to review their council tax support schemes. Details of the scheme are set out in the report. The recommendation is to make provision within our council tax support scheme, so where the government announced emergency payment local welfare provision schemes and or make increases to national welfare benefits, the council has the discretion to disregard such additional welfare payments in the assessment of council tax support. This year, those hardship payments have had to be assessed as income when we're determining whether people need hardship support. So we're just putting in a little clause to bring us in line with government to enable us to change that in year rather than having to wait till the end of the year. Because we recognise the cost of living increase has put a financial strain on households, and that we shouldn't be taking their crisis payments as income when we consider whether they get a benefit because they are themselves in crisis. And a number of crisis schemes have been delivered by the council, such as the Household Support Fund, the Council Tax Energy Rebate, as well as the stuff in the cost of living plan, on top of the issues that government has put forward. Since May, we haven't had the time to do a full review of the Council Tax Support Scheme because we would have had to have consulted on a full model. So I just want to make it clear we will be reviewing the Council Tax Support Scheme fully during the coming year, and next year I intend coming to you with a fully worked up new Council Tax Support Scheme that will provide more support for families with children. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Penberthy. Leader, I understand there's a second report.
Formally second, Lord Mayor.
Thank you. And reserving the right. Would anybody else like to speak on the item? No. Councillor Evans.
No need to speak. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Councillor Penberthy, would you like to sum up?
That's a really complicated debate, Lord Mayor. I think I'd rather not and go to the vote.
Members, right, we'll move to the vote. Green in support, red against, and amber to abstain. Right, that's carried, and we'll move on. Item number 8, council tax discounts and premiums. Councillor Penberthy, would you like to introduce this report?
Once again, I'm standing in for Mark in his absence. This report outlines and seeks agreement from council to agree to implement changes to the levying of council tax premiums at the earliest dates as set out in the Levelling Up and Regeneration Act, which received royal assent in October 2023. The Act sets out 2 strategic changes to local authority powers concerning council tax for second homes and council tax for long-term empty dwellings. Many of us will remember voting on these changes at the full council meeting in March last year, with a view to implementing both changes from 1st of April this year. However, the Act was delayed, and therefore we've effectively lost a whole year and missed out a possible additional £1 million worth of income. There are 2 distinct parts to the Act. Firstly, the rules have changed to reduce the minimum period for charging a council tax premium for empty properties from 2 years to 1 year. This is saying, as a billing authority, we can now charge an empty homes premium of 100% after 1 year, and the Act allows us to change this, or to introduce this change, from the 1st of April 2024. Potential income related to this proposal is difficult to estimate, as the eligibility of a dwelling for this premium will change over time. Secondly, the Act says we can levy a premium of 100% on all dwellings which are unoccupied and substantially furnished, second homes. This change can only be implemented from the 1st of April 2025. In keeping with the announcement last year, the government has again confirmed that billing authorities wishing to adopt any changes arising from this section of the Act are required to make a council resolution confirming their requirements at least 12 months prior to the financial year in which the changes will come into effect. Therefore, to implement from April 2025, the second homes element requires a decision by us by the 1st of April 2024, whereas the one on empty properties requires us to make that decision today. This premium provides another reason not to leave a property empty, which none of us want to see. It will help to alleviate pressures on the housing waiting list through increased availability of rental properties. It'll improve the visual appearance of empty properties that may blight neighbourhoods. It'll address problems that may be associated with living next door to an empty home, for example, damp ingression, vermin, antisocial behaviour, and loss of property value. These recommendations will encourage taxpayers to live in their main residence or ensure their property is fully occupied. And in addition, it will generate funding to support the delivery of local services. Lord Mayor, I move.
Thank you very much, Councillor Pimberthy. Leader, I understand you wish to second the report. Do you wish to speak?
Second and reserve my right to speak.
Thank you very much. Would anybody else? Councillor Bridgman.
Thank you, my lord. Please excuse my naivety, but I just wondered if this applied to business rates, because obviously on page 5 it says here 300% for any dwellings empty for 10 years or more. Now, surely the Sutton Harbour Group would earn quite a bit of back council tax on the airport site. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Is there anybody else that wishes to speak? No. Councillor Pemberthy.
Sadly, it is only residential properties. Business properties are covered by separate legislation, so it doesn't cover not only Sutton Harbour, but other businesses who choose to keep their premises unoccupied rather than finding alternative uses for them. So it is only for residential properties. Other than that, Lord Mayor, I have nothing further to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Pemberthy. Shall we move to the vote? Thank you very much, councillors. That is 49 for and 1 abstention. Thank you. Right, we'll now move on to item number 9, proposed amendments to Hackney Carriage and Private Hire Licensing Policy 2022 in relation to livery and topographical knowledge of the Plymouth test. Councillor Hayden, would you like to introduce the report?
Thank you, Lord Mayor. As you can see, we're bringing the taxi policy back to council, as we've been working on the taxi policy since coming into power in May. It was a promise from this Labour Council that we would look in to see how we could remove the financial burden on drivers who wish to invest on new vehicles and increase the availability of new vehicles to the trade by removing the requirement of delivery. We also looked at removing the requirement of new drivers to take the knowledge of Plymouth test. We will encourage more private hire drivers into the trade to support the evening and nighttime economy and support the council's commitment to violence against women and girls. This was the Commission's recommendation, where it was reported that we needed more drivers. The government has said it's time to get into the 20th century, as all our private hire drivers would have a modern dispatch management booking system, sending bookings direct to the driver's data pad with details in the booking via an inbuilt GPS navigation system, which shows the most direct route to take. The route also considers local traffic conditions. This is why we have only looked at private driver hires, as they cannot be flagged down and work from a system. Any private hire drivers wanting to go over to Hackney within their first 3 years will be required to sit the knowledge test of Plymouth, while also the council following the latest Department of Transport guides. The recommendation before council and those that will go to the Taxi Licensing Committee in February are a very positive step in supporting and growing the taxi and private hire trade in Plymouth, while always maintaining the safety of travelling public. Lord Mayor, we have all heard so many stories on how people are not able to get a taxi home after a night out, going to hospital appointments, or even just getting around our city. This has had a massive knock-on effect on our hospitality from a customer's point, but also being able to get our staff home after a shift. I ask all members to support this recommendation. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Hayden. Councillor Tibbets, I understand that you are seconding the report. Would you like to speak now or reserve your right?
I'd like to speak now, my Lord Mayor. Thank you very much. Firstly, I want to say thank you to Sally and all of the officers for their hard work in delivering this new policy. Councillor Hayden, I know that you have put absolute love for the city into this policy, so thank you so much from me and all members of the Taxi Licensing Committee for all the hard work that you've done in this. And thank you to everyone who took the time to take part in the consultation. It is so important that we hear from the people of Plymouth when we're making our policies, and it's so great to see so many responses in this report today. I welcome all of the items that will be coming to my committee on Thursday for a robust and full discussion, and you'll be hearing back at a future full council meeting about how these discussions went. I just want to highlight 2 points in this report today that I think are really important changes to the taxi policy. And the first one is around the change for private hire vehicles and drivers to no longer have to take the knowledge test. It says here in point 7.5 that that taxi operators will be using a modern dispatch management and booking system or a suitable alternative as listed in point 7.6 when dispatching drivers on a route. I know that taxi drivers have raised with me concerns that residents who maybe are more anxious or who rely on predictability of their route would be concerned that that would change if the knowledge test was removed. However, it's clear in this policy that that wouldn't change, and if anything, during periods of bad traffic, it could alleviate their anxiety because they're being redirected to a quicker route to the place that they need to get to. And the second thing that I want to mention is the school transport contracts. At the moment, due to the number of drivers that we are limited to, we are limited in our response to school contracts. And so it will be really positive with the recommendations that Sally has made to increase our drivers in the city to have more options available to us when delivering our school transport scheme. And I'm really excited to see what's brought forward. And I also, alongside Sally, Councillor Hayden, urge everyone to vote for this revised policy today, because it's really important that we continue to take our city forward, and that I truly believe that this policy has got the hearts of the Plymothians that we seek to represent at its heart. Thank you, my Lord Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Tibbets. Councillor Lugger.
Thank you, my Lord Mayor. Councillor Tippett has allayed one of my fears, so thank you for clarifying that about those with mental health issues, because they certainly get disturbed when there's a deviation from a route, so I appreciate that. And frankly, my Lord Mayor, I have no issues with the livery test removal. That is pretty much obsolete. But one thing which does concern me is the removal of the knowledge test. I mean, professional regulation is one thing that differentiates a profession with a trade, and certain trades, like the licensed trade and taxis, do have regulation, which makes them by implication more professional. So the knowledge test, I believe, is of crucial importance, and anyone can drive a car from point A to B, myself included, being the worst driver in Plymouth, looking at the dents on my wheels. But a sat-nav system invariably does take you down the longest route, whereas local knowledge, we all know, driving home, to take the shortcut. So I would urge members perhaps to look again. I am against recommendation B. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Lugger. Councillor Moore.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I echo every recommendation and support that Councillor Hayden and Councillor Tippett have already made, but I've got a couple of words of my own. Since I last drove a private hire vehicle in Plymouth, which admittedly was back around the turn of the century, technology has transformed the industry. Where our tools were a radio, a notepad and a copy of the Plymouth A to Z, today's private hire operators provide an integrated system of job allocation and GPS navigation that makes the knowledge of Plymouth test essentially obsolete for private hire drivers. I support the proposal to remove the knowledge of Plymouth test for new private hire drivers. It's a sensible acknowledgement of the technological advancements and removes an off-putting hurdle for driver applicants, yet still accommodates a switch to a Hackney carriage vehicle after 3 years if they choose. I also look forward to the other proposals coming before the Taxi Licensing Committee in due course, Allowing drivers to wear black denim trousers or skirts is a simple quality of life improvement, opening up a wider range of practical, affordable attire. Removing the requirement for a fixed position card reader in Hackney vehicles remedies a technical requirement that proved to be impractical in reality. Taken as a whole, the proposed changes to the Taxi Policy 2022 demonstrate that we are listening to the public's desperation for a reliable taxi service with more drivers, whilst also listening to drivers over some of the details that will support their day-to-day working. It's for these reasons that I urge members to support. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Moore. Councillor Partridge.
Thank you, my Lord Mayor. I support the motion by Councillor Hayden as a former private hire driver and Hackney carriage licensed driver within this city. Technology 6 years ago isn't where technology is where it is today. Taxi apps and bigger corporations that develop taxi booking services, it is my belief they're already playing around with the augmentation of AI into their mapping software. A conversation I had with an officer when I was deputy chair of the Taxi Licence Committee, we spoke about that technology and how this council could help send the official map packs to those companies. However, all in all, I'm pleased to see this being debated in the Chamber. Thank you, my Lord Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Partridge. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak on this matter? Councillor Hayden, would you like to sum up?
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and thank you, members, for your contributions. Just wanted to give a bit of reassurance to Councillor Lugger. We have followed the government who made a decision on the 17th of November 2023. So they obviously don't have the same sort of concerns as yourself. But I did, in fairness. This took a long time to come to council. I needed to be reassured that the members of public were going to be safe and they were going to be able to get from A to B in our city in a safe and the quickest route. Okay? And most of us would know our quick routes around the city because we all live here, but our visitors don't. So for me, I'm guiding those visitors as well. So I did take part in the test and had a few lessons on it for my own reassurance. So I hope that you will take my reassurance that it's come from a safety point of view. Apart from that, Lord Mayor, I would hope that everyone would go to the vote and support the recommendations. But thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Hayden. Right, we'll move to the vote now. So those in support, press green. For those against, please press red. And those who wish to abstain, please press amber. Right, there we have it. It's carried with 45 votes. Moving on to item number 10, Licensing Act 2003, a Statement of Licensing Policy 2024 to 2029. Councillor Hayden, once again, over to yourself. Would you like to introduce your report?
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Under the Licensing Act 2003, we were required to detail how we intend to operate and promote our licensing objectives in our area by publishing a statement of licensing policy. The policies are set out the principles we will apply when carrying out our statutory licensing duties. It details how licensed premises should operate. It informs our decision on whether to issue a licence, which conditions may be operative to attach to the licence. The 4 licensing objections set out in the Licensing Act 2003 are prevention of crime and disorder, public safety, protection of the public nuisance, protection of children from harm. We have to do this every 5 years, Lord Mayor, and the last one was published in 2019. So we need to have an update before the 31st of March 2024. This is a really important document for keeping people safe, supporting our businesses, and working with our partners. Lord Mayor, I hope all members will support the recommendations in front of them. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Hayden. Councillor Rennie, I understand you're seconding the report.
Yeah, it seems so, Lord Mayor. Okay, thank you. Obviously, thank you, Councillor Hayden, for the work you put in. Same as Councillor Tippett said earlier on, it's a lot of work put in by officers as well. So I want to thank the officers of the council for the work they put in. The reality is also there's some officers who have retired in the last year or two, and I want to say thank you to them because, especially Sharon and Anne, between them two, they really helped us over the years. And I really like it on record that really thank you to them too for the work they put in. Obviously, I want to thank the officers from the members from opposite, because to be honest, this committee has always been non-political. We've always worked in a way that's for the benefit of our city. As the leader said, it is city before politics in this case, and it always has been on licensed committee. Unfortunately, there at times have been so many different, it's almost like the cabinet at the main office, isn't it? There have been so many different changes. I can't name any one person because there's so many Conservatives have been chairs of the committee opposite me at different times. So thank you to all of them. As I said, thank you all, thank you to the officers, and thank you to Councillor Hayden for putting this together. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Rennie. Is there anybody else who'd like to speak on the item? Councillor Hayden as opposed to Councillor Dan. Councillor Hayden, would you like to sum up, please?
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I should have said first time round, there is some amendments in the new policy, and that is to reflect some of the changes of premises providing alcohol. Since we had COVID, we are seeing more and more home deliveries. So it's about prevention of where alcohol is going, and some really good work that has happened between the Community Alcohol Partnership. But thank you to Councillor Rennie, and I hope everyone supports the recommendation.
Okay, we'll move to the vote now. Those in support, please press green. Those against, please press red. And those who wish to abstain, please press amber. Okay, that's carried. Thank you. We'll now move on to item number 11, Stage 2 constitutional changes. Councillor Allen, would you like to introduce the report?
Thank you, my Lord Mayor. As Chair of Audit, I would like to propose the report with a slight amendment, that being to the withdrawal of the proposed rules of debate. As I understand it, a good discussion was held at Audit and Governance Committee on 15th of January concerning the rules, but there is still some work to be done and discussions to be had between political groups. As a result, the committee will delay any changes to the rules of debate for a future council meeting. The report before you outlines the changes to Part E of the Constitution. This includes the removal of the recently dissolved Heart of the Southwest Joint Committee and prepares us for the likely removal of the Heart of Southwest LEP Scrutiny Committee. Other amendments have clarified quorum for various committees and given the whole section a bit of a tidy up. The report also brings back the petition scheme for the second time. Members who sought to move amendments the last time the issue was considered were invited to make representations to the working group on the reasoning for allowing third-party e-petitions. Following a discussion, the working group maintained the position that a third-party e-petition would not be accepted. Importantly, the report makes an addition to the Constitution. The new Standards Committee will be a hearing committee to deal with any councillor complaints which cannot be resolved any other way. And with that in mind, I hope it will meet extremely infrequently. The Audit and Governance Committee will continue to be responsible for the ethical framework and Members' Code of Conduct. I move this report. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Allen. Councillor Stevens, I gather you're seconding the report?
Indeed, I am, Lord Mayor. Happy to do so formally at this stage, and I'd like to reserve my right to speak if needed later on.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. Is there anybody else who'd like? Councillor Nicholson.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Well, we've had recommendations moved this afternoon on behalf of 5 members of the council. Given the fact there's 57 members present on the council at any given time, it's part of our constitution, I will raise the point. I didn't intend to raise this, but what I've seen today from the application of the constitution, I think fundamentally, Lord Mayor, the Audit and Governance Committee and the small working group needs fundamental review. It can be right that Councillor Allen is moving an amendment to the recommendation to remove element 3, the rules of debate set out in the report, for there to be a discussion between political groups. When there's a sizable chunk of representation on this council are either Green or Independent, we're cut out completely. Now, it can't be right. What we've seen today is Councillor Evans, the leader of the council, smother and kill debate. I've seen in successive meetings where the closure motion is used to stifle democracy. We have, in effect, a councillor moving now, on behalf of 5 members of the council, further changes to the constitution. In terms of the proposals, I'm not going to object to them today, but I give fair notice, Lord Mayor, to all members of the council that this is an area of concern. We see in public life at the moment a huge debate about the post office and the inability for democracy to prevail and for the little person in the street to be heard. And the situation in this council chamber now is that we're getting to a stage, Lord Mayor, where you can be democratically elected, but when you can speak is determined by the majority of the council chamber, and that can't be right. Everybody should have an opportunity in a democracy to debate the issues that affect the city of Plymouth. So I'll give fair warning for a political institution like the council to only have 2 major parties represented on an audit and governance committee when they have every opportunity to increase the membership to allow all sections of the chamber to be represented is reprehensible. I'll give notice that this issue isn't going to go away. I will be standing up, whether it's at the annual meeting of the council, to say democracy must prevail. Because ultimately, I'm not wasting my time representing Plymouth and St Marywall without their voice being heard. And that means being heard on any matter that affects them in this council chamber. So I'll say through you, Lord Mayor, I will support the proposals by Councillor Allen today, but that will be it unless the Constitution's changed in favour of democracy. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Nicholson. Councillor Macleay.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I'm going to speak on petitions briefly. So petitions are a vital mechanism through which residents can express their concerns, advocate for change and hold their elected representatives to account. The proposed changes to our petition process are gravely concerning and threaten to restrict a vital tool of democracy. By mandating that petitions can only be submitted through the Council's own platform, we are disenfranchising a huge segment of our residents who are just looking to bring issues to our attention. Let's be honest, if you're a regular person who is inspired to push for change in your community, your first move won't be to look up the petition service for your local authority. You'll set one up on a platform that is well known, reputable and easy to engage with, that lets you keep those who sign up to date with your progress. Limiting petitions to a single platform undermines the principles of inclusivity and accessibility that lie at the heart of democracy. It creates barriers to entry for those who are unfamiliar with this council's procedures. We haven't even seen the new petition service. How are we to know the capabilities of the new system and vote to accept it without knowing those simple things? When we vote in a new policy today, this will leave us with a democratic gap whereby we can't accept petitions because a new system isn't in place yet. That to me doesn't make sense. What's more, when I googled Plymouth City Council petition, the results are for old motions and petitions. It's not until you scroll down several entries that you reach guidelines for petitions. Will this council be able to sort out their own SEO guidelines to get the service to rank high enough to be visible for those who care to look for it? This change seeks to silence dissenting voices and stifle grassroots movements. It's really disheartening and actually inconsistent with past Labour stances. Just last year, Councillor Evans spoke passionately supporting my motion requesting a report into the impact of voter ID, something we both feel passionately about, and as it weakens engagement with the democratic process. So I'm actually really saddened to see this brought forth by the administration. Democracy thrives on participation, but how can we claim to represent the will of the people if we make it hard for their voices to be heard? I won't be supporting this, and I really urge others to join me. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Macleay, is there anybody else who'd wish to speak on this issue? Councillor Stevens.
Thank you very much indeed, Lord Mayor. I'd like to begin by thanking the people on the working group. First of all, my fellow nerds, Councillor Murphy, Councillor Rennie, Councillor Mahoney and Councillor Finn, and also the acting monitoring officer, and Mr. Jago, the head of performance and very small typeface, which we're going to have to sort out, performance and risk, which we're going to have to sort out once and for all. I think what we've got is a very sensible set of measures. We've all seen the way we operate evolve over many, many years. Perhaps not so many years as Councillor Evans and Councillor Nicholson have, but a lot of us are catching up. And as sure as night follows day, Councillor Nicholson will moan about a lack of democracy. That always happens. Whoever's in control, whatever the topic is, whatever the subject matter under debate. And I, Lord Mayor, was trying to tot up the number of closure motions that he supported when he was a Conservative councillor. And even with my penchant for trivia, I lost count. It always happens that Councillor Nicholson whinges about a lack of democracy when people disagree with him. Whereas I was always told in my civics class at school, that's the nature of democracy, that people will disagree with you. We even got as far as the post office scandal at one point, as if our working group were responsible for that. That's how ludicrous it is. And although I appreciate Councillor Macleay's obvious sincerity, she made the point for me. She was talking about when residents have an issue. And that's what we're doing. We're making sure it's residents of Plymouth who can effect change and petition those in power. The platforms that she was referring to have the ability to get almost industrial levels of signatures on when something comes up they want to mobilise for. I think that's against the spirit of petitioning those who govern us. I think most people, if they had an issue they felt strongly about, they wouldn't look up all these websites. They'd get a bit of paper and start knocking on their neighbours' doors, or the local club or society or residents group or neighbourhood watch that was concerned. And the reason that a simple search of our website at the moment doesn't bring this up is quite simple. We haven't actually agreed it yet. Give it, well, probably allowing overnight. Hopefully, if we get the vote through, then it will be online and ready to go. We don't have a habit of advertising things that we haven't agreed yet. That's not actually, in our view, a democratic way of doing it. People are able to come along and put their views forward. Our doors are always open if someone has an issue that they feel strongly about, that they want to make representations on. They can do it directly to us as working group members or through the relevant officers. There's no big conspiracy. There's no big secret plan to silence people, but there is a hope to get a system that works in the interests of good governance and the people of Plymouth, and I think that's what Councillor Allen was moving today.
Thank you very much, Councillor Stevens. Anybody else like to speak? Councillor Poyser.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Just in response to Councillor Stevens there, I don't think anyone believes there's a grand conspiracy around petitions. I think this is around giving people the opportunity, yes, not just one opportunity, one place to log your petition, but there are several places which could still be compliant, yeah, used by other local authorities as well, which still are governed by data protection laws and still be received by local authorities. My concern here is that we've had, of late, petitions submitted to the council and we've had actions or inactions taken. Yeah, I don't need to name what those particular projects might be. And we've lost some trust here. So I would also say to members here, can we give the public the trust to submit their details onto a council website and it will be used in the right way? Yeah? Or would they not trust change.org or other particular organisations which they could go to and set up themselves? Understand here that campaign movements come together through these organisations like change.org as well. Yeah, they coalesce around them. Yes? And we're saying that we're allowing them to do that and present their petitions to the council. It has to come through an organised petition through Plymouth City Council. I would say that we are denying campaigners a right here as well to present themselves to the City Council here through change.org or other organisations. So again, shutting down avenues of petition, I think here, will not squash the spirit of campaigners, and I think the council needs to heed some warning here with some peril. If a movement really starts building and presents its case to the council, the council should still listen, should still be listening to those organisations and not kicking out the views of the people. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Councillor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have big reservations about e-petitions. I don't know whether members are aware, but not long ago, up north, Blackburn, Darwen area, there has been a big misuse of this kind of facility available to local people, where they had a paste and copy facility that was then transferred onto the official email, and officially they had hundreds and hundreds of people voting for a specific or petitioning for a specific issue. However, when the people went to check those, whether they petitioned, and many of them said, we are not aware. And that is my concern about e-petitions. I would rather like to see, if people want to support a petition, they do it by themselves on a piece of paper, and the people that want and feel passionate about something, they will make effort to do that. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much. Is there anybody else who'd like to speak? Councillor Allen, the floor is yours.
Thank you, my Lord Mayor. Couple of things to address. I'm sure Councillor Nicholson with his years of standing and actually won an award today to recognise that, and congratulations. you probably know better than almost anyone in this chamber how the representation and party proportionality works. So I've said this to you before, and respectfully I repeat it, if you'd like a place on one of these committees, then I suggest you join one of the major parties. That's how it works. If the people of Plymouth elect two major parties, then we have to respect. That's how democracy works. Councillor Macleay, how can it possibly be democratic that people living outside Plymouth get to tell the people of Plymouth how they should live their lives and what should be voted on and how we should vote? That is not fair or democratic. Finally, I would just like to make the point, this isn't a proposal by the Labour administration, who are in control of the council at the moment. It comes from a cross-party working group, cross-party. This also falls under the Audit and Governance Committee, which has members of not just the Labour Party. I thank you, my Lord Mayor.
Councillor Allen, was that your summing up? Ideal. Councillors, we'll now go to the vote. Those for, please press green. Those against, please press red. Those who wish to abstain, amber. That motion is now carried. Thank you very much. We now move on to item number 12, which is the electoral cycle consultation. Councillor Allen, the floor is yours.
Thank you, my Lord Mayor. As you know, the Audit and Governance Committee that I chair was asked by Council to oversee the design and implementation of a public engagement consultation exercise about whether the Council should retain our current system of electing by thirds or whether we should consider moving to all-out elections every 4 years. The committee has spent time discussing this issue and reviewing the approach taken by other councils and has agreed the consultation questions set out on page 244 of your papers, which, as you can see, we have tried to keep simple, namely, which option would you prefer for Plymouth residents to elect their councillors? 3 bullet points: change to whole council elections, keep the current system, or I have no preference. Since we received the request to consult about our electoral cycle, the Local Government Boundary Commission for England has announced an electoral review for Plymouth starting this year. The number of councillors, wards, ward names and boundaries for the city will be reviewed and consulted on by the Commission. This is a major review, not undertaken for over 20 years, that will affect all of us and potentially all of our voters. As is always the case after an electoral review, it will be followed by all-out elections in 2026 for every ward and every councillor. It is my view, given the significant public engagement that will need to take place to consult with the public over wards, ward names and boundaries later this year, that this is a much better time to seek feedback about our electoral cycle. We have heard that response rates to electoral cycle consultation exercises have been low when they've been carried out elsewhere, and this is an opportunity to combine this question with a broader set of questions about our electoral and ward map, which should generate more public interest. Any council electing by thirds normally needs to have 3 councillors in each ward, which is a change since we had a last electoral review, and would affect our 3 2-member wards in Plympton and Drake. We would have to address this anyway if we wanted to maintain our current electoral cycle of thirds, and if there are strong arguments to retain 2-member wards, they can still be made during the review. My Lord Mayor, I hope this is a clear explanation of a slightly complex set of issues, and that Council will agree with the recommendations of the Audit and Governance Committee on page 241 of the papers, that we ask for feedback about our electoral cycle at the same time as views are being sought about our ward names and boundaries between July and September this year. I would also ask for confirmation of the consultation questions we have proposed. Thank you, my Lord Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Allen. Councillor Stevens, I understand that you are seconding the report.
Indeed, Lord Mayor, I'd like to reserve my right to speak, if I may. Once again.
Absolutely. Councillor Lugger.
Thank you, my Lord Mayor. Don't worry, Councillor Allen, I'm not going to berate you. I'm pleased that consultation is finally taking place. Thank you. My Lord Mayor, could I just draw your attention to page 244 of the papers before you? It does state that the timing of the consultation is the remaining issue to be resolved. The Local Government Boundary Commission for England has expressed the preference that this is resolved prior to the beginning of the electoral review. On the 21st of November 2022, Council set the timings for the consultation process. For the avoidance of doubt, it was June to August of last year. So had the consultation taken place on time, members would have had the opportunity to look at the data from the surveys. We could have debated in full chamber the merits of all-out elections against election by thirds. We could have then had the 2/3 majority, preferably with a free vote on both sides of the chambers. Then we would have had a resolved position. So when I read paragraph 2, it says, in the absence of a resolved position, the Commission would likely propose a uniform pattern of 3-member wards allowing for election by thirds to continue. So surely my reading of this is we are now literally stuck by election by thirds.
Members, is there anyone else who wishes to speak? Councillor Nicholson.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Well, to an extent, Lord Mayor, I'm disappointed that the recommendation being moved today is a missed opportunity. Whatever the council does, there's always conflicting demands. And as we run up to a local election, there's more interest in local elections and after the local election, which in effect is when the consultation exercise is planned to take place. And certainly, having had the briefing, as all members were invited to a briefing by the Local Boundary Commission, their preference is to do it before they actually start their process of consultation. So I am disappointed that the council isn't taking, firstly, the recommendation from the Boundary Commission that they seek our views and the public's views before they undertake their own review. And I'm not sure that it's in the best interest of the city that actually this is delayed. So it might be the recommendation of the Audit and Governance Committee. And what I would say to Councillor Allen is look at the Local Government Association. They don't cut out Greens and independents and minor parties. They actually include them in the way that they run the authority. And Councillor Evans, through you, Lord Mayor, is a leading member of the Local Government Association. So I hope he might reflect upon that, the way that organisation works, and compare it to the way we operate in this council. So again, democracy should prevail, and it should prevail at the appropriate time. And certainly the Local Government Boundary Commission would have liked it earlier, but if the council resolves not to follow that course of action, then so be it. But I don't think it's in the best interest of the city. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Nicholson. Councillor Mahoney.
Thank you, my Lord Mayor. I am disappointed that we haven't had this consultation already. It should have happened. I appreciate now the great difficulties there are in fitting this around the impending local elections, which will be closely followed by the Boundary Commission starting work. However, I feel it would have been important for the views of the citizens of Plymouth to have been known and a consequent discussion taken place at a council meeting, so that we would have known the feelings before the Boundary Commission set out their first proposals. What we might have decided does affect, or what is decided, whether we can keep the 2/3 mixed ward sizes, or it may well affect that. So I am disappointed at the dragging of feet over this and the kicking of this consultation down the road. I did vote against this and express my views at the Audit and Governance Committee, and I will be voting against today. Thank you, my Lord Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Mahoney. Anybody else wish to speak on the matter? Councillor Stevens.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I'm obviously happy to support the recommendation and the report that Councillor Allen has put forward. When I said that in the future we'll have Councillor Nicholson complaining about lack of democracy, I hadn't anticipated it being quite so sudden. No doubt when we discuss the minutes and everything else, that'll also be a lack of democracy for not including him. We do like you, Patrick. We do, but you don't have to be on every committee. Honestly, we do have other people on both sides of the chamber that we can trust and do have ability. So I think what we've got is a sensible idea. The fact that both will be happening at the same time will raise awareness. One will help the other. There will be momentum and a snowball effect built up, which I think is good. And look forward to seeing the result, Lord Mayor. I'm one of the few councillors who served continuously since the results of the last electoral cycle review, and I know I don't look old enough, Lord Mayor. I know that's what you're about to say, but I think this is a very sensible way of doing it. It is important we get it right, and the method that's been recommended is just that.
Thank you very much, Councillor Stevens. Well put. Right, Councillor Allen, would you like to sum up, please?
Thank you, my Lord Mayor. Firstly, many thanks to Councillor Lugger. It is very much appreciated that you did not berate me this time. I'm not going to come back to Councillor Nicholson because I think Councillor Stevens has put it better than I could. Just also to say, thank you for the Audit and Governance Committee for working on this proposal, which I also agree is a good way forward. Anything that improves voter engagement and awareness can only be a good thing. Thank you, my Lord Mayor.
Right, members, we'll go to the vote. Green in support, red against, and amber for abstention. That motion is carried. We move on now to item number 13, appointment of statutory officers, a monitoring officer and S151 officer. Councillor Dan, would you like to introduce the report? No? Chief Exec.
Thank you very much. Sorry, members of council, for a little bit of confusion there. Just to say this report is a report before you to appoint 2 statutory officers. They report directly to you, and that is our new monitoring officer who will start with us next month, and also to extend the appointment of David Northey as the statutory section 151 officer.
Councillor Dan, it does actually need to be moved by yourself, but naming those officers, and then we'll go to the vote.
I am more than happy to move the paper, and I do apologise for the mix-up. I did ask if it was my paper, and they said, no, definitely the executive. So I will read out the little bit that I would have put in my spiel. Excuse me. So this is to make sure that we appoint a monitoring officer and a Section 151 officer. Section 151 officer David Noy was confirmed anyway, but this is a continuation of contracts, and for the monitoring officer, it's when the new monitoring officer actually comes in post. So I would like you to support, please, the paper. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Is anybody would like to? Yep. Councillor Lang, you going to second? Brilliant.
I will second it, Lord Mayor.
Anybody like to have a word on this matter? No. Councillor Dan, would you like to sum up? Brilliant. Right. We'll go to the vote on this. Green for those in favour. Thank you very much, councillors. That's carried. Right, we now move on to the next matter, which is the Pay Policy Statement 24-25. Councillor Dan, would you like to introduce this one?
Thank you, Lord Mayor. This is the Pay Policy Statement for 24-25. It is a paper that comes to the Council every year. The Locusm Act of 2011 requires every council to prepare a pay policy statement by the 31st of March each year for the following financial year, which is approved by the City Council. It sets out the information about remuneration and council policies for chief officers, which under this definition is inclusive of the head of the paid service and also compares the highest paid employee with the lowest paid employee. To address low pay, the Council introduced the principles of the foundation living wage by adding a discretionary, non-contractual market supplement back in 2014. The Council will continue to pay this foundation living wage of £12 per hour from the 1st of April 2024, which is a top of 41 pence per hour for the NJC lowest paid employees on Grade A, who currently have an hourly rate of £11.59. Negotiations for the 2024 National Local Government Pay Award have not yet commenced, but once they're agreed, the top-up will be adjusted accordingly. At the time of writing this report, the ratio between the highest and lowest paid grade, which is a Grade A employee, is 1 to 7.5 from April 2024. This is a significant reduction from 1 to 14 in 2012. I would like to remind all members of the additional grades that were added to the Plymouth City Council's pay structure to aid recruitment and retention of staff at senior level, and also that we move to align apprenticeship pay to the NJC pay structure. I would also like to make sure that you realise that for NHS pay bands when are used for appointing specific roles, which will typically be for public health colleagues, and that chief officer salary reviews, which includes the head of paid service, are the responsibility of the chief officer appointments panel. So I therefore propose that the council approves this year's pay policy statement for 2024-25. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Dan. Leader, I understand you're seconding the report. Do you wish to reserve your right?
Yes, Lord Mayor, I'll reserve my right to speak.
Thank you very much. Are there any members who would wish to speak? Leader? No. Councillor Dan? Members will go to the vote. Those in support, green. Those against, red. And those who wish to abstain, amber, please. Right, members, that's carried. We now move on to item number 15, the committee calendar. Deputy Leader, would you like to introduce the report? Now, Councillor Aspinall, would you like to introduce the report?
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Members, this is the annual calendar that comes to us, and I thank the officers for filling in all the gaps for the meetings. It's always very useful to those of us that are not up for election next year, or this year rather, to know what the heck we're supposed to be doing and when we're supposed to be doing it. So I'm hoping you will all put it in your diaries, and then obviously the groups can make sure that they're notifying of their meetings well in advance for their members. It might seem quite an easy task to do, but it isn't. So I'm really, really thankful to the team for all their work in this. And although Jamie might be slightly bolder there, I'm glad Hannah hasn't joined him. So thank you very much. And I move that we accept the calendar for the coming year.
Anybody wish to second this one?
I will be seconding, please, Lord Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Lang. Anybody wish to speak? Right, I think in this case we'll put this for note. Yep, all agreed? I know. Moving forwards. Now let's try and get one more done. Not quite 4 o'clock. And we now move to motions on notice. It is my intention to do one motion on notice, and then we'll take a break. Councillor Rainsford, would you like to propose your motion?
Thank you, Lord Mayor. No one ever knocks on my door. I haven't seen any election addresses. How often do we hear that refrain from neighbours, local meetings, on social media, or down the pub? From long experience, starting at the age of 4, I'm very well aware just how difficult it has become to reach voters, and that this has had a negative effect on the relationship between the electorate and politicians. I'm moving this motion because I passionately feel we should be doing something about this. Our democracy may not be perfect, but it generally works and it needs protecting. During the by-election, I know I visited some properties 3 times to try and find someone at home. I also know there were estates, flats, HMOs where access was impossible, even to deliver leaflets. We were barred. There are areas across Plymouth, like Millfields, Ocean Court, Keyham Court, and actually most Plymouth Community Homes flats, which are either impossible or difficult to enter. My conclusion is that this results in a significant democratic deficit. Too many properties are inaccessible, particularly during local elections, to candidates and their literature. It's extraordinary that we are asking people to vote without ensuring that they have access to information about the people who are vying to represent them. When I approached one gated community in Plymouth, I was initially told security staff will deliver the material. But when I returned with the leaflets, this offer was withdrawn on the basis that, and I quote, "If we do this for you, we have to do it for everyone." Well, yes, that's sort of why we do it. That's the point. We live in a democracy, and there are people from all walks of life caring about a huge range of issues who are still willing to stick their heads above the parapet and stand for public office. Thank heavens they do, because it makes our democracy stronger. Now, the private estates are not alone in being inaccessible, because many flats have restricted access. Houses in multiple occupation often have a number of bells with no indication as to which flat they belong, and often don't work. Sometimes there are subdivisions of rooms in a property, which further complicates our ability to speak or access residents. Now, it's probably only the bigger and better resourced parties which can afford to make some use of the postal service. My ward colleague, Councillor Pemberthy, did the sums. And were we to post to every home in St Peter on the waterfront where we are not allowed to canvass, and this is a scary figure, 3,131 properties, It would cost around £2,350, and with an expenses limit of £1,700, that's simply not going to work, is it? There's not a level playing field as there is during a general election, when all candidates are allowed one free post. The estimated cost to the taxpayer of around 50 million of allowing a free post for local elections in the current financial climate would be unacceptable. So we do need some sort of statutory change which enables election materials to be passed on to voters. This is not just a problem for candidates, Lord Mayor. The electoral registration officers trying to ensure we get everybody on the electoral register also have problems. In St Peter on the Waterfront, we have about 13,000 people now registered. But when set against other data, including the census, we appear to have almost 5,000 people who are not registered. It isn't acceptable that voters are left feeling taken for granted because they see no one and don't hear from anyone. In an increasingly large number of cases, it's simply that candidates are blocked. I haven't even touched on the issue of voter suppression, which saw 86 people in the city prevented from voting because they didn't have the right ID. Now, I did call the Electoral Commission during my by-election to check that the estate could refuse access, and it was confirmed that indeed they could. They didn't appear to be able to offer a solution. Now, it's been suggested to me that perhaps a condition on new builds through the planning guidance could be worth looking at. I mean, I don't know, it's something for the Electoral Commission. I recognise there are significant issues which need to be addressed. That is why my motion calls on the council leader to take the issue up with the Electoral Commission and with the Speakers Committee on the Electoral Commission. A democratic deficit of this kind is not acceptable, and I ask you, therefore, please support this motion. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Whilst in loftier houses this isn't true, however, in this building, I believe that was your maiden speech, so congratulations.
Thank you.
All right, Councillor Allen, I understand that you are seconding.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I am, and I wish to reserve my right to speak.
Thank you very much. Is there anybody else who wishes to speak on this matter? Thank you very much, councillors. Councillor Allen.
Thank you, my Lord Mayor. I think the Chamber and anyone watching online has probably heard more than enough from me today, so I'll keep it very short. Just, fully support what Councillor Rainsford said in her motion. As I alluded to in two previous items I've spoken on in this meeting today, anything that can increase engagement of our residents and voter participation is a good thing. Democracy is precious, democracy is fragile, and it's so important that nobody is disenfranchised from that. Thank you, my Lord Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Right, we'll now move to the vote. Those... Oh, no. Sorry, Councillor Rainsford, you need to sum up.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Just briefly, I think none of us in this chamber today will want to hear an anecdote from a voter which says, I went to the polling station, I voted, but I hadn't got a clue what it was I was voting for. Hence the motion, and I hope people will support it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Right, we now move to the votes. Those for, please press green. Those against, please press red. And those who wish to abstain, please press amber. Members, that is carried. Right, before we adjourn for tea, I would like to introduce councillors, please. Before we adjourn for tea, I would like to introduce Mr. Jonathan Cowie here, who's the Chief Executive of Plymouth Community Homes. He'll be joining us for tea. He's currently sat at the back there. Can you please identify yourself, please, Jonathan? Thank you very much. Right, so we'll all adjourn for tea. Thank you. We'll be back in here for, say, 25 past, half past.
No,
25 to 5. Thank you. That's time. Let's reconvene. We now move to item 13B, which concerns excess profits by private companies providing children's social care. Councillor Lang, would you like to propose your motion?
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and thank you again for letting me sit down to do this. Whenever I talk about the costs of children's social care, and I have been banging on about it at every opportunity since I learned more about the way this market operates, I get one abiding image in my mind, and if you'll indulge me, I'm going to share it with you. The image I get is one of those Wile E. Coyote cartoons where he's grabbing the grass and slowly pulling it like a rug over the cliff. And on top of that rug are city halls and council houses like this one across the country. But in my example, it's not a beloved cartoon character from our childhoods dragging us ineluctably closer and closer to the brink. It's the exorbitant costs of children's social care and the eye-watering profits some providers are raking in. Some local authorities are closer to plunging into the canyon than others. Some have already plummeted into the abyss, issuing their Section 114 notices as they bang into each tree root on the way down. But if the rest of us want to avoid ending up at the bottom of the canyon too, then doing nothing is simply not an option. I'll end my analogy there. So, for some context, the large-scale privatisation of public services has meant that children's homes that used to be run by local authorities in the voluntary sector are now run by private for-profit providers who deliver 3/4 of residential placements. This transition has resulted in a steady increase in the price of placements and profits for providers, but vitally, there isn't any evidence that rising costs have benefited children in residential care. Sharp cuts to local authority funding over the past 14 years has been met with increasing demand for services, and more recently, the cost of providing services has risen markedly too, especially during the current bout of inflation. In our case, our current most expensive residential placement is £17,150 a week. This is made up of social care, education and therapeutic elements. Our average residential placement cost is £6,733.54 a week, which equates to £328,719 a year. In 2022, the Competition and Markets Authority investigated the profiteering of certain providers of independent fostering and children's homes, some of them owned by private equity firms. They make eye-watering amounts of profit, and local authorities of all colours are at their mercy. We need our children to be cared for, sometimes at very short notice. And when it comes to bargaining, we certainly do not have the upper hand. In Plymouth, we're employing someone whose role is to look at the cost of each placement and to try to work with the provider to see if there are any ways to reduce the cost. The very definition of a thankless task. I mean, these are not easy conversations to have, but they are vital when we are very much in the provider's thrall. But for me, it's more than that. It's a statement of intent that we as a local authority are fighting back. This is public money we are talking about here, lots of which is making its way ultimately in disproportionate amounts into the pockets of already very wealthy people, profiting from the most vulnerable people in our society. It is wrong on every level. There's no question we need to create some of our own provision, and this is something that local authorities across the country are doing, and I don't see a future where we don't do that. But the scale of wholesale change we now require to tackle this needs to be on a national level. It's heartening the conversation is starting to happen where it needs to, and I've already mentioned the CMA report. And in 2022, the government commissioned an independent review of children's social care concluded that the country had sleepwalked into a dysfunctional residential childcare system. But there is another way. I've been reading about the work of Ivana Laval, a visiting scholar at the University of East London, and she's been looking at the way Italy provides its care. Residential care there can only be provided on a not-for-profit basis. And I was pleased to be in the Labour Conference Hall in Liverpool last year to hear the Welsh First Minister Mark Drakeford talk about the Welsh Government's steps to tackle excessive profits in the sector. Of course, the naysayers say it will lead to a flight of providers from Wales, a veiled threat that once again demonstrates the stranglehold on this area of public spending that the private sector has. We all agree as corporate parents that we want the best care for our children, but it can't be at any price, and simply because we aren't prepared to do the work and have the difficult conversations we need to make the case for an alternative. I repeat, the option of doing nothing simply isn't valid. This is unsustainable, and all local authorities will eventually go over the cliff, Wile E. Coyote style, peddling furiously in thin air before nosediving into insolvency, screaming, "That's all, folks." It's fiscally wrong. It's morally wrong, and most of all, it's wrong for our children. I urge you to support this motion. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Councillor Cresswell, I understand that you are seconding the report.
Yes, thank you, Lord Mayor. My Lord Mayor and members of the Council, I rise to second this motion and am delighted to do so because I know that Councillor Jemima has a real passion for all of our children, especially our most vulnerable children. We are talking about those children today. But secondly, because we are corporate parents, and I am actually going to drop the term corporate and just use parents in this speech because they are our children. Right across the chamber, elected or non-elected, we all want the best for these children. This is a real cross-party agreement on this one, and thank you again for the way we work as a council team. In Cabinet, with leader of the opposition, the small parties in scrutiny chair, officers, our shadows, Councillor Carlisle and now Councillor Harrison as well. Welcome to the team. There is no political point scoring here on this one. We are a team, there is no I in team, and we are just 100% committed to our children and young people. They come first. This motion is about something which is morally indefensible, which all of us right-minded good people can only find sickening. The idea that companies and individuals can make massive profits by effectively exploiting the disadvantage of others is nothing less than obscene. Last week, a big row erupted over Avanti West Coast trains. Their leaders were caught joking about the UK government handouts from taxpayers, our money. Internal slides on performance payments were joked as being too good to be true. One slide entitled, roll up, get your free money here. It was all about how the Treasury and the Department for Transport supported the firm with taxpayers' money, provided third-party suppliers inspections, and they then paid Avanti fees to top them up. This caused some outrage, and perhaps some embarrassment for Avanti, who were forced to apologise. Obviously, this is appalling and needs further looking into, especially as they are ripping off the taxpayer. So think how much more serious what we are debating today. We are talking about our most vulnerable children, companies who are taking millions of pounds from cash-strapped local authorities, realising they can charge what they like. Not surprising, they have annual incomes of 1.63 billion and making profits with a 19% profit margin. And just out of interest, compare that with Sainsbury's, whose profit margin over the last 5 years is an average of 7.8%. If that £350 million worth of profit was going back into local authorities, we'd be able to do so much more with early intervention, early help, protecting and supporting, perhaps keeping more of our young people out of care, and in short, greater opportunities for better outcomes and better lives. Now, I'm optimistic because I want to be positive. I believe that writing to the Minister, David Johnson, is not going to fall on deaf ears. He's only been in post since the 31st of August. And at the moment, children's social care isn't high on the priority list of government. However, when I went to the Adult and Children's Social Care Conference back in November, Mr. Johnson did speak from a link from Parliament, and he did say the following and made these following 4 points. Firstly, he said he understands our pressures. His background is actually in charities for disadvantaged children. Secondly, he said he appreciates what we do as local authorities, and I think that was actually a thank you. 3, he said he's keen to hear from people who know best. Well, we're the people who know best. And fourthly, he raised the market and profiteering, and I really genuinely think he wants to do something. I felt he was sincere in what he was saying, but it can't be easy at the moment to push this as an issue when there is clearly so much turmoil at the centre of government. The voices of reason and those who genuinely care and want to get on and do things to make Britain a better place for our young people are perhaps being drowned out. This is why I think a positively framed letter which genuinely has cross-party support could help us support Mr Johnson to support local authorities, including our own. It might even be possible to share this motion on notice with other local authorities so that the local government family voice is further amplified. I remain positive about this in terms of this motion on notice passing and action eventually being taken, because I said at the beginning, all of us are parents with a sense of fairness, and we can only find the current system indefensible, and it has to change. Thank you, Lord Mayor, and I hope this will be unanimously supported.
Thank you very much, Councillor Cresswell. Councillor Riley.
Thank you, my Lord Mayor. The current government has brought many local authorities to their knees, and in doing so have put a massive strain on social care for both young and old alike. I recently worked as part of a team supporting young people with complex needs within an educational setting. One of those young people seemed quite familiar to me, and it dawned on me that I had supported their biological parent in a previous role as a rough sleeper support worker. I also realised quite quickly I was witnessing the conveyor belt that people seem to talk about. What this government has also done has allowed companies to capitalise on the experiences of our children and young people and take away vital funds from the care that they need. These children do not choose to be born into poverty, addiction, complex situations or homelessness, yet they find themselves affected by the decisions made by those around them and have been failed somewhat. As the Chair for Children's Services and Education Scrutiny, I see, hear and feel the compassion, drive and determination from all involved here in Plymouth. We have great leadership in Tudor and Jemima. Our partnerships are working extremely hard to achieve an excellent standard of service for young people. Our officers in this area are some of the most enthusiastic I have met, but empathy, compassion and enthusiasm alone cannot affect this change. No matter how much everyone in this chamber agrees and understands the importance of giving our young people the strong foundations for a successful future and to thrive, as the motion states, there is a need to be an overhaul, and we absolutely need to hold these companies to account, because something needs to be done to stop companies making huge profits and give the young people of our city the fighting chance that they deserve by funding early interventions adequately. So I'm in support of this motion. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Riley. Councillor Beer.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Can I say thank you to Councillor Lang and Councillor Creswell for bringing this. It's been some time ago since I was a portfolio holder for children's services here in Plymouth. But one word just stuck with me just now, what you said, Councillor Creswell, and that was exploitation. I am deeply saddened that we are still exploiting our young people in the way that they are being exploited by making sure that these people who provide care for our young people are charging extortionate rates for care. We've got an excellent in-house fostering service, and I've seen the good work that our foster carers offer. It saddens me greatly to see that we are being drawn down and pulled down to gutter level to have to pay huge amounts of money to care for our children. And I'm deeply saddened by it, and I hope everybody in this chamber this afternoon will support this motion. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Beer. Councillor Harrison.
Thank you, my Lord Mayor. Thank you for bringing this motion. I echo the concerns regarding the strain on our local budgets and the authority trying their best for our children. I also echo what Councillor Creswell said about, yes, they are our children. We have the responsibility for children that are most vulnerable. And I believe that communication is the way to go. So any communication with those that have the ability to make changes is positive. However, I do believe that a lot of this is about placement sufficiency and the challenges that we're experiencing and across the country in looking at to support our looked after children particularly. Lots of these children will have complex needs, and that will, by necessity, mean that they will need additional provision and a bespoke provision which costs money. I'm also saddened, the supply and demand is in all industries, but we shouldn't be making an industry out of our most vulnerable children. In Q4 of 2023, 39.9% of our children were out of area, went into provision that was out of area. Now, this is something that's obviously trying to be addressed. Councillor Beer has already spoken about our in-house foster carers, and I know that good work is being done to try and support and to encourage foster carers to look after our children. Councillor Carlisle last year put forward motions about council tax reductions, and I know that we are trying to encourage and support as much as possible. But I also think that we need to find, there need to be efficiencies in finding and purchasing placements. Now, whether that can be through collaborative procurement, us working with local authorities to try and bring strength to a market so that we are overriding the powers of the largest providers who are making these profits, or whether it is our commissioning in itself, making sure that it is robust and that we are getting the service we need. So we need to be looking further. We need to be reviewing what we are doing in our local authority. I think we also need to be planning for future needs. We meet as much as we can. That is not always easy, particularly when we have emergency placements that are needed, but we need to be planning ahead. We need to be making sure we've got the right place for the right child at the right time. I also am very interested to hear about the residential care model in Italy. When I'm over there in September, you never know, I might look that out and see where it is, see if I can find out more information. If we can look at not-for-profit, perfect. But we also know that it's a market economy, and sometimes the private market might be the best way to go. But who knows? Let's do the research and find out more. So in essence, I support what is being said because we need to be making sure that the money is spent in the right place at the right time with our children, because they should be at the heart of what we're thinking about here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Harrison. Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and thank you to Councillor Lang and Councillor Creswell for raising this, because I think you've done a really important job of bringing this to our attention this afternoon, and obviously the profits that you're talking about are eye-watering. And obviously in an ideal world we do all of this in-house, but I think it is important that we do acknowledge that we are dealing often with the most vulnerable and complicated questions. And a bit like Councillor Harrison has just alluded to, I think there is a role for the private sector to play in this where we cannot provide that at a local level, because often it does take sending into kind of more specialised support for these young people. So I also just wanted to make one tiny comment that, I think it's a very valuable motion, something I'm going to be supporting this afternoon, but we do get these supposedly cross-party motions with some digs at us at the same time. And I think when we're working with you on something, I think we need to be good at doing full cross-party without sort of a bit of a dig in a kid glove at the same time. So I'm happy to support it, but I just wanted to acknowledge that there have been a few digs made against the government this afternoon, which is fair because you're the opposition, but it's cross-party and I couldn't vote for it without actually mentioning that. Opposition in a national level, not local. Fine. And I know what Councillor Creswell is pulling faces because I know that she did a really excellent speech. I'm just making a general comment that sometimes cross-party motions do end up becoming a little bit too party political, which just makes us slightly have to doesn't make it as easy for us to support. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Smith. Councillor Cruiselak.
Thank you, Mr. Lord Mayor. I find this motion upsetting in a sense, because it is diabolical to see big businesses taking a huge profits, those that are CEOs and people that have their businesses spread all over different portfolios, that have no clue whatsoever what our children and those the most deprived and most in need of help go through. Find this motion very inspiring, that we as a council are standing up for those that are in the need of our help. We know that a national government, with their austerity plans, have been decimating the funding of the vital services across the country, whether that is Tory councils, Labour, Liberal Democrats, whichever councils we are talking about. Every single one of them is suffering. However, I know that we as a councillors have sincere feelings in our hearts to help those that are the most in need of our help. And I plead with every single one of you to support this motion and send a clear message to national government that the way how a present system operates is not good enough. It's not good enough to provide huge, probably multi-million pounds worth of bonuses to chief executive officers that can afford to fly for their businesses, and our kids that are in desperate of need of help do not have enough even to be fed. I know that care provider services that we have, the people that work at the front line are dedicated people, but they are not paid the monies that those massive corporations take from our councils. So I ask you to support this motion. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak on this motion? Councillor Lang.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Thank you very much for everyone's contributions. I don't think Councillor Smith's telling off was necessary, really. I mean, maybe that's a direction from Conservative HQ to their candidates, I don't know. But Councillor Creswell actually talked very positively and at great length about David Johnston, and I hope that he'll listen to what we have to say here. So thank you to Councillor Beer for mentioning our brilliant foster carers. I should add that we work with some great providers too, not tarring everyone with the same brush, but as Councillor Creswell says, we could be using some of that money for early help, which could prevent so much of the work that we have to do and the care that we have to provide. And we shouldn't be making an industry of it, as Councillor Harrison says. And we know that we can make a non-profit model work, as they do in Italy and as they're looking to do in Wales. And we do need to be planning, she's right about that, and we are. But there is only so much we can do as individual authorities. I return to the CMA report, which said that, in its view, there are significant problems in how the placements market is functioning, particularly in England and Wales, and they found the largest private providers of placements are making materially higher profits and charging materially higher prices than we would expect if this market were functioning effectively. Remember, the Local Government Association commissioned a report which revealed that the largest independent providers of children's social care services in England made profits of more than £300 million last year. That's our money. That's your money. There's a simple ethical question of whether such eye-watering profits should be made from the most vulnerable in our society. The Children's Commissioner, Rachel de Souza, revealed a couple of days ago that she thinks not. Her predecessor, Anne Longfield, goes further by calling it obscene. So I hope you will all support this motion, and the letters that we send will find a sympathetic ear. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Lang. I think we'll move to the vote now. Those in support of the motion, press green. Those against, press red. And those who wish to abstain, please press amber. And the motion is carried. Right, moving on to motion on notice 16D, unauthorised encampments. Councillor Nicholson, would you like to move the motion, please?
Thank you very much indeed, Lord Mayor, members of the council. So I rise to move the proposed motion on the order paper and to speak in the hope that members across the chamber will hopefully support the motion, because it's seeking really for the Labour members, Labour cabinet members opposite, to take on board the concerns that are raised in this debate, but the concerns that unfortunately the communities in 2023 experienced from unauthorised encampments. So Lord Mayor, within a week of being re-elected to the council in May of last year, directly in Plymouth St Mary ward, there was an unauthorised encampment turned up in Glen Road. And from that point, across the city, King George's Fifth playing fields, Prince Rock playing fields, Tothill Park, Knoll Battery, and many other sites, including Peacock Meadow in my own Plymouth St Mary ward at Colebrook, all had unauthorised encampments having an impact on the local community. And I think generally in life we do try to learn lessons from issues that have occurred in the past to try and mitigate them moving forward. So this is all about trying to appreciate from the cabinet member now, today, or certainly in the coming months, what mitigating measures are going to be affected to try and lessen the impact of the very unfortunate impact that many communities across the city experienced in the summer of last year. Lord Mayor, I reserved the whole of my community grant fund for this year to try and support some resilient works in Plymouth St Mary to try and mitigate obviously the impact of stopping unauthorised encampments, and learnt just before Christmas the decision that came back from officers is that there is a review being undertaken, and therefore there wouldn't be a need to spend community grant on this in this financial year. So clearly I'm looking at other priorities in the ward. And I would like to say at this point that certainly I commend all the good work that Matt Garrett's Community Connections team does in communicating with ward members, and to Jessica Dan particularly for the work that she does on behalf of the council in addressing these issues when they occur. But I would suggest that the impacts are so great that we need to be reassured, again either today from Councillor Penberthy or in the coming weeks, of what actions the council, together with all councillors and the wider community, can do to mitigate the impacts and to try and preserve our green open spaces for the use of particularly citizens for sport and recreation activity that they're barred from doing when these sites are occupied by unauthorised encampments. Because certainly people in surrounding Peacock Meadow in my own Colebrook area, couldn't use Peacock Meadow when there was 20 odd caravans taking over the site, and therefore the adjacent community centre was closed because of the impacts potentially of the unauthorised encampment. So it has had massive impacts, and I know that Labour members opposite in their own areas equally had to tackle this last year. So the purpose of this motion is really to ensure that it stays on the radar, that we don't just walk into another summer period when we're all affected across the city, that we build effectively the representations made at budget scrutiny for Councillor Larry to look at the way that we provision for dealing with unauthorised encampments. So I know from my own experience in this council that if you don't budget for something, you have to rob Peter to pay Paul in that budget to fund activities. And it shouldn't be the case that street services are having to perhaps not cut the grass so frequently, or not litter pick, or not undertake other activities because they need to spend a few £100,000 on removing asbestos from some playing field or a heap of rubble that have been dumped unnecessarily in an inappropriate location. So I would hope that the Cabinet Member for Finance would take that on board, and certainly it was part of the scrutiny recommendations. But I also hope that Councillor Penberthy would entrust us with what actions are happening in the department to look at resilience works and look at measures to mitigate impacts as we approach in the coming months the summer period when this is at its worst. So it's a genuine motion on notice to seek to address and learn lessons from last year, and I hope very much that this council will support the recommendations in the motion, and that in due course the relevant cabinet members can provide updates to all members of the council. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Nicholson. Councillor Beer, I understand that you'll second the motion. Do you wish to speak now or reserve your right?
Yes, I'd like to speak now, Lord Mayor. Thank you. I agree with Councillor Nicholson's sentiments, and we spend hundreds of thousands of pounds each year on clearing up sites and taking out legal action. Whilst I accept people have the right to live how they wish, I cannot accept that they are allowed to take over and reside on our green spaces, play areas and pitches. Lord Mayor, these areas are for our communities. My concern, Lord Mayor, is that year on year, our street services, community connections budget are impacted, and therefore the people of Plymouth feel the pain of delays in delivering of projects that matter to them. Lord Mayor, in Plymouth now, we have experienced unlawful encampments, and it's usually Councillor Loveridge and myself that go to the sites and have actually been actively involved in clearing up them. We have, Lord Mayor, even known to draw up our sleeves, get out there, pick up all the rubbish on these sites, and regularly visit the sites to update our residents on what's happening. Lord Mayor, I urge everybody in the chamber to support this motion today. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Beer. Councillor Penberthy.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. We accept the recommendations and therefore I propose we move to the vote.
Have you a seconder? Thank you very much. Councillor Hayden. Right. Okay.
We're voting on whether to take a vote on the motion.
I'd like to remind you now that we are voting on a vote, on a closure vote here.
You'll get a chance in a moment.
Yeah, you will. You'll get it. You'll get it. This is the next step. The next step. Absolutely. That's carried. Right, Councillor Nicholson, would you like to close, please?
Lord Mayor, thank you very much. Well, I'm surprised again that we've closed Democracy Day, but nevertheless, I should quit while I'm ahead in thanking all members of the council. I'm presuming Councillor Penberthy is speaking for the whole of the Labour group, and I hope for other members in the council chamber that they equally will support the motion. It is good news, Councillor Penberthy. Thank you very much through you, Lord Mayor, to Councillor Penberthy for accepting the recommendations, and hopefully we look forward in due course for you to updating us on what measures are going to be taken. So thank you all members, and hopefully it will be unanimously supported. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Right. Sorry. Yep. Councillors, we are now moving to the vote on the motion. Those who support green, those who are against red, and those who wish to abstain, amber. Thank you very much. That's unanimous. Right, move on to the next motion. In lieu of lose. I never thought I'd say that. Councillor Nicholson.
No, sorry.
Yep. I apologise, we have a typo that I've now just been updated on. So, Councillor Macleay.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I'll promise to do my best Councillor Nicholson impression for this speech. Why are public toilets so crappy? Toilet humour is rife in British culture, but the provision of public toilets is certainly no laughing matter. Public Public toilets are integral to making cities accessible, inclusive and economically viable. They matter to everybody, regardless of age, class, ethnic origin or gender, but they are even more important to certain sections of society, including people with disabilities, the elderly, women, infants and children, people experiencing homelessness and tourists. The availability of public toilets is an equality issue, a public health issue and a human right. Access to clean, accessible facilities with appropriate facilities is a basic requirement of health, hygiene and personal safety. From their induction in Victorian times, public toilets have unlocked spaces, enabling us to get out and enjoy our surroundings without having to worry about having a place to go. Public toilets are vitally important, but they are also in decline. In Plymouth, we've seen facilities close, go offline for long stretches of time, made unappealing through poor upkeep and inaccessible through odd opening hours, cost and the payment methods they accept. We also see a huge disparity in public toilet provision across Plymouth, with several parts of the city with no coverage at all. In my ward, Charlottewood, several residents have shared that a lack of benches and toilet facilities stop them from going outside and walking as far as they like, making them feel isolated and be less active than they'd otherwise like to be. The benches we're working on, but I also desperately want to get the toilet part right too. I see the absence of these facilities does not remove the necessity for bodily functions, rather it removes the freedom to enjoy public spaces, with those who are elderly, disabled, menstruating, pregnant, etc., pushed to the fringes and especially tied to a low leash. This motion has been bubbling away in my mind for quite some time, and I've read extensively on the topic, including the House of Commons Communities and Local Government Committee's 2008 report on the provision of public toilets, which outlines the cost of building and maintaining these facilities. It's also just a fascinating read if anyone wants to read it. By working in partnership, so I know that budgetary constraints are ever present, and that's why I'm requesting that as part of a larger review, we introduce a community toilet scheme to introduce provision where it is currently lacking in a cost-effective manner. By working in partnership with local businesses such as cafes, shops, gyms and pubs, we can build a scheme that works for us as a local authority, businesses and members of the public. I think there's a really exciting and vital bit of work here for us, and I hope we can all support this motion and work cross-party to flush out a good plan for Plymouth sloughs. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Clay. Councillor Poyser, I understand that you're seconding the motion. Would you like to speak now or reserve your right?
Yes, Lord Moore, I am seconding the motion. I'll reserve my right to speak during the debate. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Penberthy.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I'd like to move an amendment which has been prepared, I think.
Councillor Penberthy, do you have a seconder for this? Councillor Stevens, well done, thank you. Do we need some time and adjournment to further study this, or can we just move ahead? Okay, right, we'll move on then. Councillor Penberthy.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I do believe on the amendment I sent in, the first block in black was also deleted. It was a delete and rewrite amendment, and I will explain why. And I would like to thank you, Lord Mayor, for the opportunity to move this amendment, which I welcome in principle, but it is in effect asking for something that already exists. I inherited a toilet strategy in May. Lord Mayor, you probably remember it because you worked on it. And It includes a community toilet scheme. I've been discussing this with officers, and we think there are still some tweaks that we can make to improve that. And we have already started thinking about what that might look like. So you're asking for us to develop something that already exists. And I therefore wanted to amend a motion that puts some tighter context and makes it very clear what we plan to do in order that we can be accountable to council for that. And this lays out, obviously, our direction of travel in the work that we've already started. I've noted in the amendment that the provision of public toilets isn't a statutory obligation, but remains a priority of this administration, as evidenced by a £300,000 annual revenue commitment to their upkeep and their enhancement. The national government cuts to council budgets since 2010 have severely restricted the council's ability to provide any non-statutory services to the degree that we would like to, and that includes public toilet provision. That local residents and visitors appreciate the provision of toilets in order to enhance their experience of being out and about in Plymouth, and that toilet provision is an important part of life for people with disabilities and health conditions, children, the elderly, and those who are moving around the city because of work and who have no access to workplace toilet facilities, like those taxi drivers and delivery drivers that we might have been talking about earlier. We also acknowledge that we do have a public toilet strategy and that we have invested capital in our public toilet facilities over the last decade to quite a substantial amount. The strengthened recommendation is therefore a request to me, as you had requested, to review the current public toilet strategy within the budget envelope available in order to maximise the impact of our public toilet provision, learn from best practice elsewhere, identify opportunities for additional external investment, both revenue and capital, as we've been doing in St Budo, and partnership opportunities to enhance Plymouth's offer. To take the results of this review with proposals as a way forward to the appropriate scrutiny panel for consideration within 12 months. Lord Mayor, I've tightened it up. I've set a very clear direction of travel in the amendment. I trust Council will back me in doing that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Penberthy. Councillor Stevens, do you wish to speak or reserve your right?
No, I'll formally second at this stage and reserve my right to speak if needed in a while. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Are there any other councillors who would like to speak? Councillor Hayden.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. As Councillor Penberthy has mentioned St Budo toilets, I would like to thank him and his team for finally unblocking the barriers to replace the old toilets on St Budo Square. Myself and Councillor Dingle have campaigned for so long for our new toilets. Myself and two other Labour St Budo councillors at the time put in our community grant towards it, as we know how important it is to our residents and to our visitors that visit St Budo Square. So I look forward to you opening the new toilets, Councillor Penberthy, in St Budo Square. It's all happening in St Budo these days.
Thank you very much, Councillor Hayden. Councillor Beer.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Just want to make it clear this afternoon that none of us over here have ever been briefed on toilets. And it's a classic example of what we were trying to explain earlier on, that we are excluded. There's nothing democratic about this council involving us in briefings and things, because we're not included. So I wanted to make that point. I also want to raise a point that public toilets are really important, particularly to those who are reliant on stoma bags. There are not enough facilities in our public toilets for those people to be able to change stoma bags. And I speak on behalf of Bowell Council West on that point. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Beer. Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. In general, I think this is a great motion on both sides, both the original and the an amendment. The only thing I just want to raise is the 12-month period for the next review, because on the 7th of February last year, I took part in a consultation meeting for the last review, along with Councillor Watkin and Councillor Wakeham, specifically looking at Plymouth Broadway public toilets, which are broken at the moment and have been broken since the new fire station was built because damage was made to some water pipes and it hasn't been fixed. And the reason why it hasn't been fixed is because a review was taking place. So I suppose I'm just raising that with Councillor Penberthy to say a review is one thing, but we took part in a review 12 months ago, and I keep having to tell residents in Plymouth Broadway and in Radford and Dunstan that we're waiting to hear what's going to happen next, and it just sounds to me like this is going to be potentially 12 months before we get an answer. So, like I said, in general, happy to support. However, I just wanted to highlight that there is just that longevity there for residents, particularly in Plymouth, who've been waiting for the works to be decided upon. Is it going to happen? Is it not going to happen? And now we're going to have to tell them it's going to be potentially another 12 months. So just wanted to put that on record. And I appreciate the work that's going to have to go into this. It's a big job to do. But I just wanted to raise that here today because it would be remiss of me not to. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Smith. Is there anybody else who'd like to speak on the amendment? Okay, we'll go to the vote on the amendment. No? Sorry, yeah.
Councillor Stevens.
Hang on. Councillor Stevens. Yep.
Lack of democracy. Was it? Fine. Okay, Lord Mayor, I'll break the habit of a lifetime and be terse because to govern is to choose, and my experience is that successive Labour councils have clearly shown that public toilet provision is a priority. So the investment that Councillor Penberthy has highlighted comes as absolutely no surprise to me, even in these very difficult economic times. I believe the provision we've got, albeit with some repairs that will inevitably be needed given the provision that we're talking about, from Southway to Jenny Cliff, from the Ridgeway to Pottery Quay, is one that's impressive. And I know from my own ward just how responsive Labour councils are, because we were able to get the toilets down at Richmond Walk repaired and renovated very quickly and very efficiently under a previous Labour administration. I think what Councillor Penberthy is presenting us with is a common sense approach to this. It does set out a very reasonable timescale. That's not to say that any issues such as the one Councillor Rebecca Smith, has raised cannot be raised in the meantime. That's always the case, and I think this is something that deserves our support today. As I said earlier on a different subject, I don't doubt Councillor McClay's sincerity in this. I'm sure she's absolutely right behind what she's saying. But there are ways to get things done. And sometimes putting motions of this type forward with elections coming up might achieve one goal, but not the other. And I think, given what's been seen in St Budo, as Councillor Hayden highlighted in the last few days, following the work that she and Councillor Dingle have done, shows that hard work by local councillors is the way to do it. I'm happy to support this amendment, and when it's passed, that's when we'll see some proper action and debate on this important subject.
Thank you very much, Councillor Stevens. Councillor Penberthy.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. In terms of the existing toilet strategy, I inherited it. Therefore, I have not done any briefings on it. And because it was existing, I do know that the Lord Mayor, in his previous incarnation, did ensure that any members where changes to toilet provision in their ward was happening were engaged in briefings and discussions on that. So, Councillor Beer, it might be that you had no conversation at the time because there was no change, but I know that that did happen, and I participated in one of those. So I would hasten to say that that was made available to all councillors, I think, Lord Mayor, where you were actually making changes. So no one was excluded from that because all ward councillors, where there were any changes, were included. I would like to thank Councillors Hayden and Dingle for the pressure they put me under this year on St Budo toilets. They are the only two councillors from St Budo who have talked to me about it. I do understand that I've heard on the grapevine that it's a Labour problem because it was the Labour councillors who started the initiative. Well, I hasten to think that toilets are not a Labour problem. I think that they're something that we need to solve for everyone in the city. Councillor Smith, the review took place while you were in Cabinet. You might want to criticise the results of that review. That's an internal issue for you and your party. I would hasten to say that the person who has talked to me consistently since they were elected in May about the toilet provision in Plymstock is Councillor John Stevens, who has bent my ear very, very frequently on the topic. Just because we're doing a review doesn't mean we won't be bringing some things forward earlier, but we are going to have to work within the budget and the time constraints that we have available. I am aware that Plymstock Broadway has lost its toilets. However, I don't think that Plymstock Broadway toilets were in the right place anyway. And maybe it's not just a case of put something else there and reinstate the water. I think we do need to come up with a solution that is better for users of Plymstock Broadway. And we will continue on that vein of listening toward councillors and at the moment look especially at those where toilet provision has been removed recently, either because of vandalism or building work, and come up with a strategy that will look at how we make the best of public toilets in Plymouth. That is what the amendment says. It's what we're doing. I hope Council back us as we do it. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Penberthy. Right, so we'll move to the vote now on the amendments. Okay, so that's passed. Right, are there any further speakers who wish to further debate? Yeah.
Through you, Lord Mayor. So the amendment has now been agreed, so the motion is amended and it remains on the floor for any councillors to debate it, should they wish.
So, Councillor Poyser, would you like to now to... Councillor Poyser. Yeah, but you seconded it and you reserved your right, so it's your opportunity to now speak. And then we'll go back. He doesn't want it. Okay, doesn't want to say. Right, Councillor McLean, can you please sum up?
Great fun. I think this has got caught up in party political things, which I wasn't intending when I brought this motion very sincerely. I know that might not come across. I'm not going to lie, I'm incredibly disappointed, but that is the way of how things go in here. I look forward to the introduction of a community toilet scheme. I'd love to be involved. Maybe we can have a meeting to discuss it further, but yeah, that's all I have to say.
Right, now we go to the vote on the motion as amended. Right, members, that's now carried. Yep, we've finished now, haven't we? Right, councillors, we now move on to item 15, which is questions by councillors. Can I invite members to ask any questions of the leader, cabinet members or committee chairs? Please indicate you would like to speak by raising your hand and I will call you to speak. Please note, there is 45 minutes for these questions and answer sessions. I would ask that the Cabinet members, when responding, do not turn round and continue to face forward, please, so that it's easy for you to speak to the microphone. Questions should be no more than 1 minute long and answers no more than 2 minutes. Members may ask one supplementary question, not a statement, which must be related to the original question they asked. The same time restrictions apply. Councillor Poyser.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. A question for Councillor Coker in relation to the recent bus shelter debacle across the city. As councillors will know, we have the mobilisation of a new bus shelter contract and an exiting contract. There are clearly issues with the two contracts, not leaving consistent cover for bus users. Appreciate that officers are in a really difficult position at the moment, but I think most councillors in this chamber, as would the public, appreciate some kind of formal public statement that would be issued, especially as I think this is going to be quite a contentious issue coming up to local issues. And I think we do need to just keep the electors and our residents of the city informed of exactly what's going on. So thank you very much, Mark.
Thank you, Councillor Poyser. I'm sure there was a question there rather than a statement. As you're aware, this administration inherited the current contract, although Councillor Hayden, myself, Councillor Smith and Councillor Green previously looked at this. The Councillor Kevin Sproston, my bus champion, and myself are actively engaged with officers on the performance of both the old company and the new company in how they are proceeding against targets. When we have reviewed that and when I have a definition, I am happy to share with all members, but I think until we have that position, it would be very difficult for me to do. That is ongoing, Councillor Poyser, and as soon as it's finalised, I will share with all members.
Supplementary?
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Would that be issued as a public statement online so that residents will understand the current position?
I will share it with members so that they can see the up-to-date position within their wards. We will then look at how we best share that with members of the community, because what I don't want to do is put something out that I am unable to deliver. So as soon as I am in a position, officers, my bus champion and members can feed back to me on the best way that they think for us to communicate the progress that we have made.
Councillor Mahoney.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. It's a question for Councillor Hayden about lighting in the town centre and safety for pedestrians. 18th of December, a lot of the lights north end of the city were out in Old Town Street and New George Street. All the hoarding lights were out, and it was obvious that most of the overhead lights on the buildings were not working either, particularly in Old Town Street and one side of New George Street. The walkways were very dark, people weren't very happy, so there were emails the next day to you and officers about it, and the hoarding lights were restored fairly quickly. On the 9th or the 8th of January, I emailed everyone again saying that the overhead lights were still not working, and they aren't to this day. Is this satisfactory, and is this in the interest of public safety in Plymouth when we have a lot of blacked out shops and narrow alleyways at the moment because of the building works? Is it safe, and what is going to be done about it?
Through you, Lord Mayor. I totally agree. And as soon as you sent me that email through to Christmas, I did respond to you. We did get officers out. Lighting doesn't come under me, but the community safety side of it does come under me. It's not acceptable to have dark areas. Paul Barnard was onto it with the relevant team. So no, I don't accept dark areas, okay? And it's probably something that we need to go away with the city company as well and have a look to see what the problems are and why the lighting keeps going out is the problem, I would say. But I totally agree with you. It's not acceptable.
Supplementary.
Thank you, my Lord Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Hayden. Well, I mean, I hope they will be put right fairly soon, but I walked around last night and even more have failed, this time on the north side of Old Town Street. There are precisely 12 out of 32 lights working, the big ones up on the buildings in the top end of New George Street and Old Town Street. Some of the hoardings are coming down, so those lights are now going. So it is not safe, it is not acceptable. Can you give me any idea when these lights are going to be working again?
Lord Mayor, are you happy for me to respond? I would like to respond, if that's okay. I know it's not a two-way conversation, but I don't see many people wanting to ask questions. Or either that, sorry, Lord Mayor, I do apologise for not standing when I'm talking to you. Either that, or could you please ask me the question again? And then raise your hand and ask the Lord Mayor to ask me a question again, and then I could answer it. If that's any help.
Thank you, Councillor Hayden. It was a supplementary saying that when I walked around last night, even more lights have failed. None of the original ones are now working, and there are only 12 out of 32 lights working in Old Town Street and the upper end of New George Street. And I asked, again, this is not acceptable, which you will accept, but when are they likely to be repaired?
Sorry, Lord Mayor.
Yes, please, Councillor.
I am trying to confuse everybody, aren't I? From a community safety point of view, that's my hat, okay? From the lighting in the city centre, that's Councillor Larry. And I think it would be very useful to get Councillor Larry and officers, but while we wait for him to come back from his leave, let's just get on with it. Why don't you just email me and let's just get a meeting together. Let's not wait to come into here to discuss that. I know, you have emailed me, yes you have, and as far as I'm concerned, officers had walked with you and had dealt with you. If they have not, I can only go by waiting for you to let me know. And let's face it, you're not a new councillor, you've been in the cabinet, you know how it works. Please just talk to me, all right, and let's get this sorted. Thank you very much.
Councillor Harrison. Councillor Harrison.
Sorry, I thought there were more questions. This is a question for Councillor Bryce-Dale. Grass cutting, as usual. Okay, I'm extremely pleased to say that the slope that I have been nagging about since the end of season was cut this morning. Hooray. It has been an extremely long process to actually get it cut. My question is, where we have slopes which are causing more issues because of the robotic system that is used, which apparently the robots keep breaking down, and I was shown this morning one of the pieces that are broken off yet again. Is there a timeline that we should expect that end of season cuts should be completed by? Bearing in mind that we're now in the last few days of January, is that considered an end of season cut when I presume that the beginning of the season is March? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Harrison. So you're exactly correct. There have been some technological challenges associated with this. So for various reasons, there are different approaches to grass cutting based on the terrain that's used. Some of that relates to health and safety, but also efficiency. So that has impacted at the end of season cut. The new season doesn't start until the spring, so there is still some time to do that. Our staffing levels also change over the winter as well to make sure that we're ready and prepared at different parts of the season based on need. Thank you.
Supplementary.
Thank you, my Lord Mayor.
But is there a time when we say would be the end of the season? Is the end of January acceptable to say an end of season cut? There are numerous areas around Plymouth that have not yet been cut. I see a lot of other areas that have been. But is there a deadline or a time that you would hope that you would be that the teams would achieve, rather than it being the end of January or beginning of February?
With any aspect of grass cutting, there has to be a certain degree of flexibility based on various reasons, staffing, seasonal changes, weather, as such. So no, there isn't a fixed time. But what I would reassure you on is that the Labour Administration have invested an additional £300,000 into grass cutting for the next financial year. So that will hopefully help us to improve our services based on that. Thank you.
Councillors, I have no more questions. As such, that is the end of full council. Thank you very much and have a safe journey home.